Okay, hello. How's everyone doing today? I'm messing with my mic. I have it set up through USB instead of through the XLR interface. So I'm not sure if this is going to sound better for you. But let me know. Hopefully someone will pop on and say, yeah, it's okay. It's not gonna, there's no compression or any noise gating or anything on here. So I don't even know what it sounds like. But at some point I'll get into doing that. I also have the Beacon Mix Create, but I had it on my work laptop and it was a nightmare. And I haven't been brave enough to put it on here on my main computer yet. Oh, I got to get the closed captions running because, open source. Okay, so what is this one? Sure. There we go. All right. So hopefully that'll get the closed captions running here in a little bit. So let me know how this is working for you sound wise. Just bear like this. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I'll find a way to listen to it so I can fine tune it. I'll need to find a way to mess with it later. All right. So what's happening today? Not a whole lot is happening with me. The Dungeons and Dragons movie trailer just dropped, which is exciting. I think that's it. That's the only thing that's been going on with me. I've been pretty busy. Work keeps me busy. I love my work, which is awesome. Work for an online university as one of their main accessibility people. And we're slowly making our push for accessibility. I'm their technical expert on staff. So yeah, it's been great. My hours go from 9:30 till 6, so it really sucks into my evening. I mean, it's only an extra hour, but still, it's an extra hour instead of 6. Instead of 4 hours at night, I've got about 3, and it just sucks into a lot of it, especially here in the summer. But yeah. So that's pretty much all that's going on with me. I've got a whole bunch of links here for us to go over. We'll get to some of the longer ones towards the end. I expect we'll have time because I have a whole bunch of smaller links that we can go through, and they should go pretty quick as we go here. All right, any questions, comments, or suggestions before we get started here? Yeah, I don't have anything else. I really want to watch Harry Potter again. I've just been jonesing to watch it, and I can't find a decent place to watch it online. I have all the DVDs, so I may have to just sit down and play the DVDs, although my computer up here in my office doesn't have a DVD player. So I'll have to go downstairs and watch it down there. I don't know if the daughter want to watch it again. I do. And they're just good movies. I like them. All right. Let's get started here. We have 2 things here on climate change, I think. 3 quick ones. Oh, let's go over here. Let's bring this over here. 4 quick ones on climate change. Actually, let's just go and hammer in climate change here a little bit. And then we'll get into the other smaller ones. All right, let's do this. Okay, so in a paradox, cleaner air is now adding to global warming. Satellites capture fall in pollution that helps to cool the planet. So look at that beautiful pollution. Look at it. Just so beautiful. Pollution in China has fallen with the spread of smokestack scrubbers, but the cleanup is boosting warming. It's one of the paradoxes of global warming. Burning coal or gasoline releases the greenhouse gases that drive climate change, but also lofts pollution particles that reflect sunlight and cool the planet, offsetting a fraction of the warming. Now, however, as pollution control technologies spread, both the noxious clouds and their silver lining are starting to dissipate. Using an array of satellite observations, researchers have found that the climate climatic influence of global air pollution has dropped by up to 30% from 2000 levels. Although this is welcome news for public health, airborne fine particles or aerosols are believed to kill several million people per year. It is bad news for global warming. Yeah, we have an article on that. It's on Discord, and we've read this. It's like 8.7 million people per year die from pollution. Let me go ahead and share this like I'm supposed to. And I need to grab this too. I'm slacking. No, not that one. Damn you. There we go. The new study, submitted as a preprint to Atmospheric Chemistry and Physics in April and expected for publication in the next few months, grew directly out of last year's UN climate assessment. It included studies showing aerosol declines in North America and Europe, but no clear global trends. Quas and his co-authors thought two NASA satellites, Terra and Aqua, operating since 1999 and 2002, might be able to help. The satellites tally Earth's incoming and outgoing radiation, which has enabled several research groups, including Quas and his colleagues, to track the increase in infrared heat trapped by greenhouse gases. But one instrument on Aqua and Terra has also shown a decline in reflected light. Models suggest a decrease in aerosols is partly responsible, says Venkatachalam Ramaswamy, director of National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's Geophysical Fluid Dynamics Laboratory. It's very hard to find alternate reasons for this, he says. Quas and his co-authors have now taken things a step further with two instruments on Terra and Aqua that record the haziness of the sky and therefore its aerosol load. From 2000 to 2019, haze over North America, Europe, and East Asia clearly declined, although it continued to thicken over coal-dependent India. Aerosols don't just reflect light on their own, they can also alter clouds. By serving as nuclei on which water vapor condenses, pollution particles reduce cloud droplet size and increase their number, making clouds more reflective. Reducing pollution should undo the effect, and using the same instruments, Quas and his team found a clear decrease in cloud droplet concentrations in the same regions where aerosols declined. The evidence in the paper is clear, says Joyce Penner, an atmospheric scientist at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. It's remarkable that we're seeing this already, she says. This is contributing a lot to the climate changes we are seeing in the current era. Just how much this declining reflectivity has boosted recent warming is hard to quantify, says Stuart Jenkins, a doctoral student at the University of Oxford, who is also studying the aerosol decline. In forthcoming works, Jenkins will show there's just too much natural variability in the past 20 years to pick out the effect of clearer skies. Whatever the exact contribution, it is sure to grow as air quality continues to improve around the world. The answer isn't to keep polluting, says Jan Cermak, a remote sensing scientist at the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology. Air pollution kills people. We need clean air. There's no question about that. Instead, efforts to reduce greenhouse gases need to be redoubled, he says. But with Earth having warmed by some 1.2 degrees Celsius since pre-industrial times, Hansen thinks there's little hope of cutting emissions fast enough to meet the 1.5 degrees Celsius target he and other scientists have called for. And so the solution, he says, could come back to aerosols, this time ones sprayed deliberately through solar geoengineering, the controversial idea of lofting sulfate particles into the stratosphere and creating a global reflective haze. It would be necessary to take temporary corrective measures, he said, almost surely including temporary purposeful use of aerosols to avoid catastrophic implications. Okay, so my issue with this is that you're going to be putting aerosols, of course, in the environment, which will eventually get down to the ground. Now, geoengineering that way is not my preference. What I would really prefer is to basically use satellites. use mini-sats or large satellites to put out a reflective barrier, preferably one that is solar powered, and then has solar panels on it that can absorb solar energy. And then you can use those, maybe a combination of larger sats and mini sats, to reflect some sunlight. But also, if you get larger satellites that act as power satellites to beam energy places, then that will, put those mini satellites or larger satellites who are reflecting some of that light to more or better use. You could connect all the smaller satellites to the bigger satellite and then collect the energy and then beam it wherever you need to. So this is interesting. Neat little paradox going on, but it's something that we have to kind of deal with here. All right, next one. The rest of these are going to be shorter, I promise you. Any questions, comments so far? As we transition to the next one. Yeah, we're going to tear through these and get to the bigger ones here, like over here. There's some nice and big articles there to read. We've talked about this before, wet bulb temperature. Wet bulb temperature soon to become leading cause of death. So to explain what wet bulb temperature is so that you understand what we're talking about, just wet bulb temperature is where that there's a specific temperature and humidity, like beyond which the human body cannot cool. So basically, if your body can't cool itself, then you're going to die through heat stroke or something like that. And there have been several places throughout the world, like mostly in the Middle East, where we've seen wet bulb temperatures, where people have been dying. And as the temperature keeps going up and things keep drying out due to climate change, the wet bulb temperatures around the world are going to be much more prolific. It's going to start happening more and more people are going to die. And of course, this will happen predominantly in the global south. And of course, those countries that are impoverished and being raped by the global north, right? So again, like people say, it's the global south that will suffer the most from the ramifications from climate change. So that's what we're going to get into here. As our abrupt climate change catastrophe becomes more extreme, the leading cause of death on the planet will be humans hitting their wet bulb temperature. It has been widely believed that a 35 degrees Celsius wet bulb temperature equal to 95 degrees Fahrenheit and 100% humidity, or 115 degrees Fahrenheit at 50% humidity. Okay, so this I don't expect will hit all too often because it's drying out, but this right here is becoming much more possible, especially in the Middle East. 50% humidity, 115 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, yikes. Was the maximum a human could endure before they could no longer adequately regulate their body temperature, which would potentially cause heat stroke or death over prolonged exposure. Wet bulb temperature is read by a thermometer with a wet wick over its bulb and is affected by humidity and air movements. It represents a humid temperature at which the air is saturated and holds as much moisture as it can in the form of water vapor. A person's sweat will not evaporate at that skin temperature. But in their new study, the researchers found that the actual maximum wet bulb temperature is lower, about 31 degrees Celsius wet bulb, or 87 degrees Fahrenheit, yikes, at 100% humidity. Oh, wow. That's a lot lower. Instead of what do they say up here? 95. Okay, it's not a lot. It's still a lot. 8 degrees lower Fahrenheit. So 87 degrees Fahrenheit at 100% humidity, even for young, healthy subjects. The temperature for older populations who are more vulnerable to heat is likely even lower. In a recent study with Matt Huber, we showed that it doesn't take that many degrees of global warming to permit peak heat, summertime heat stress to occasionally become unsurvivable in many parts of the world that are currently highly populated and impoverished. We came to this conclusion by considering a meteorological quantity called the wet bulb temperature. You measure this quantity with a normal thermometer that has a damp cloth covering the bulb. It is always lower than the usual dry bulb temperature. However, much lower depends on the humidity. At 100% humidity in a cloud or fog, they match. In Sydney or Melbourne, even during the hottest weather, the wet bulb usually peaks in the low 20s degrees Celsius. The highest values in the world are about 30 to 31 degrees Celsius during the worst heat humidity events in India, the Amazon, and a few other very humid places. Okay, yeah, Amazon. Okay, yeah, 100% humidity there makes sense. Climate Change Research Center, CCRC, the University of New South Wales, Sydney, New South Wales, Australia shared here what is wet bulb temperature. Okay. Okay, do we keep going? Yeah, that's it. Okay, so here's the wet bulb temperature. It looks like temperature. It's 80. What is that? 87? There's no 87. So 103 degrees. No, what is 87? Okay, here's 87 and 45 degrees, 45% humidity. So here's the wet bulb thing, if you want to take a look at it. All right, so there's that. Any questions before we move on? I'm expecting you guys can hear me. Question, comments, suggestions. Damn it, did it again. No, I didn't copy it. All right. Oh, and let's go over when these. Okay, this is July 2022. This is a few days ago, the first one. The second one is, this is May 2016. Okay, this one is quite a bit older, but the science is still there, which is good. All right, The Guardian. Go back. This is from July 18th. This is from this week, it looks like. All right, this heat wave has eviscerated the idea that small changes can tackle extreme weather. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Yeah, it's it's good that he's writing this, and this is important to know. But leftists, we all know that it's in order to tackle climate change, our actions need to be as radical as the crisis we are facing, right? And we look at my environmental policies. I'll pull those up. I know I keep bringing these out, and everyone's annoyed at seeing them, but they're here and they're useful. We're talking lower the military industrial complexes spending by 75%, move that over to like a Green New Deal, shift to sustainable energy. The government needs to be funding geothermal and wave tidal research and setup, as well as high altitude wind turbines, because that's what we need to be using for base load power, as well as changing all of our urban infrastructure, mass transportation, universal healthcare, and all that sort of stuff. It's a whole lot there that we need to do. All right, let's see what he has to say. Dangerous heat will become the norm, even in the UK. Systems need to urgently change, and the silence needs to be broken. Yeah, this is fire somewhere. We have fire here in the US, right? I think somewhere going on. Can we talk about it now? I mean, the subject most of the media and most of the political class have been avoiding for so long. The only subject that ultimately counts, the survival of life on Earth. Everyone knows, however carefully they avoid the topic, that beside it, all the topics filling the front pages and obsessing the pundits are dust. Even the Times editors still publishing columns denying climate science knows it. Even the candidates for the Tory leadership, ignoring or downplaying the issue, know it. Never has a silence been so loud or resonant. This is not a passive silence, it is an active silence. A fierce commitment to distraction and irrelevance in the face of an existential crisis. It is a void assiduously filled with trivia and amusement, gossip, and spectacle. Talk about anything, but not about this. But while the people who dominate the means of communication frantically avoid the subject, the planet speaks in a roar becoming impossible to ignore. These days of atmospheric rage, these heat shocks and wildfires ignore the angry shushing and burst rudely into our silent retreat. Yeah, that's exactly, we've read, I know I'm climate doomer here, we've read quite a few articles on this very topic that, you can't ignore climate change. Like, some people think climate change is coming. It's not that climate change is coming, it is here now. It's here right now. Well, like I say, we are in the end of days right now. I mean, what it would take to turn this around is, being carbon neutral is a vote for genocide. We need to be so fucking carbon negative because the temperature's going like this, right? And we need to have the carbon go negative to even have a chance of turning this down. If you're not like horrendously carbon negative, you're not doing jack shit for anyone. So that's the goals that the UN and the IPCC and every single country in the world needs to be going for, is carbon negative in the next 5 years. Like, oh my God, 5 years. That should have been the goal 10 years ago. Carbon negative in the next 5 years, we might have a chance to save humanity. Anything other than that, and it's just voting for the end of humanity. Okay, enough of that. We have seen nothing yet. The dangerous heat England is suffering at the moment is already becoming normal in southern Europe and would be counted among the cooler days during hot periods in the middle of during hot periods in parts of the Middle East, Africa, and South Asia, where heat is becoming a regular threat to life. It cannot now be long unless immediate and comprehensive measures are taken before these long days of rage become the norm, even in our once temperate climatic zone. Right, and I was talking with someone at work about, the weather that's going on, and I'm like, well, here in the United States, currently in where I'm at in Wisconsin, we are in one of the better places to be as far as climate change, because here it's going to be nice for a long time. Once the riots and the food starts going away and everything, it's the weather will be nicer here than will be any other part because we're further north. But Canada is probably one of the best places to be in because they are further north. All right, the same formula applies to every harm humans do to each other. What cannot be discussed cannot be addressed. Our failure to prevent catastrophic global heating arises above all from the conspiracy of silence that dominates public life, the same conspiracy of silence that has, at one time or another, surrounded every variety of abuse and exploitation. We do not deserve this. The billionaire press and the politicians it promotes may deserve each other, but none of us deserves either group. They're constructing a world between them in which we have not elected to live, in which we may not be able to live. On this issue, as on so many, the people tend to be far ahead of those who claim to represent us, but those politicians and media barons deploy every imaginable wile and ruse to prevent decisive action from being taken. Oh, right, of course they do, because us plebes, us peasants don't actually pay for their re-election campaigns. We don't pay for their multi-million dollar hedge funds and their retirement accounts, right? They do so on behalf of the fossil fuel industry, animal farming, finance, construction firms, car manufacturers, and airline companies, but also on behalf of something bigger than any of those interests, the power of incumbency. Those who hold power today do so by stamping out challenges, regardless of the form they take. The demand to decarbonize our economies is not just a threat to carbon-intensive industry, it is a threat to the world order that permits powerful men to dominate us. Right. To give ground to climate campaigners is to surrender power. Right. I've never quite put it that way, but right. That, our politicians serve, like they're saying here, the banks, the fossil fuel industry, the military industrial complex, right? Those are the people who pay for for them to stay in power and for their multi-million dollar, retirement funds. So if they actually start talking about the climate and actually wanted to do something about it, all that money goes away. It just all goes away. All the money, all the influence, all the power just goes away. But on the other side of that, if someone in Congress was to jump up and start throwing a fucking tantrum about this, and start, saying what they need to say, well, what should be said, that they will get the backing of the people. Bernie Sanders kind of had talked about this sort of a thing, especially once he jumped on to the Green New Deal bus, which I was actually quite surprised with. Not necessarily the Green Party's Green New Deal, but the one that the squad was putting together. So, yeah, if you there isn't a lot of money to be made in doing the right thing, and that is the fundamental problem. That is not what capitalism rewards. Capitalism rewards sociopathy and exploitation, and that's not what doing the right thing ever truly entails. In order to do the right thing, you have to surrender power. Surrender yourself to the people and to the environment. And there's no profit in that. Over the past few years, I've begun to see that mainstream environmental movements have made a terrible mistake. The theory of change pursued by most established green groups is entirely wrong. Though seldom openly articulated, it governs their strategy. It goes something like this. There's too little time and the ask is too big to try to change the system. People aren't ready for it. We don't want to scare away our members or provoke a fight with the government. So the only realistic approach is incrementalism. Incrementalism is death. We will campaign issue by issue, sector by sector for gradual improvements. After years of persistence, the small ask will add up to the comprehensive change we seek and deliver the world we want. Okay. Right. Yeah, that's never going to work because, just as I said earlier, the level of our action needs to be radical enough to meet the radicalness of the challenge that we face. And to save humanity from extinction requires massive, massive global change. It has to change every single aspect of the way we do things. My policies are all about that, from the philosophical foundations to the actual environmental and economic policies and foreign policies and so on and so forth. There's just, my policies are about 205 pages long. Please take a look at it. There's just a lot we need to change to save humanity from extinction. And incrementalism isn't the way to do it. Now, as I've commented on this sort of a thing, and when you're looking specifically at environmental groups, and we also look at like the Forward Party, the People's Party, and even the Green Party, one of the fundamental problems we have as leftists is becoming organized. Right-wingers organize well because something that's important to them is purity and get worshiping power for the most part. Leftists aren't like that. People who care aren't like that. We're very different people, and that's a large part of the problem. Like, I think Dr. King, I don't know if Dr. King said this, but those who love peace must learn to organize as well as those who love peace must learn to organize as well as those who love war, or something like that, right? And that's exactly right. And that's the big problem that all leftist organizations have. We all suffer from capitalism, right? We all suffer from competition for donated money, competition for mailing list, competition for audience, right? And that's the problem. All these left-leaning organizations are competing. You can't do that to make change. You can't do that to fight the system. Now, like Andrew Yang starting the Forward Party, it's not a party per se, it's more of a pack. But when I was looking at the People's Party, which was neat, and even think about the Forward Party, we don't need new parties. We don't. What we need is a single unifying umbrella under which all leftist parties can go under. Share the money, share resources, share manpower, share brochures, share data, and use that as a way to organize national, if not global, movements for the same thing. Individual people, individual groups don't have enough power to change the system. We need to unite. We need to unionize everyone who wants to save humanity from extinction. And the only way to do that is get everyone working together under one umbrella. So, if Andrew Yang really wanted to make a difference, fuck the Forward Party and drop that and create an umbrella under which to bring everyone under so we can work together. That's the only way to save humanity from extinction. That's the only way to get any change at all. Get everyone working together. Now, this isn't to say that every leftist under this umbrella is going to agree on everything. That's not kind of the point. The way I envision it is a sort of website, and under every issue, you break everything down into specific issues. And then people who support those things can work together and run and do their protests, share their data, create their brochures, and work on that issue. Like, let's say you just want to work on, I don't know, that's something sustainable energy. Specifically, you want to work on solar energy, solar power, right? So you got a whole forum there, a whole set of people who support solar power, and they can get together, share their data, share their manpower, share their brochures, and work together and start collecting the information on the government officials you need to hit. And also start, like, everyone who wants solar can work together and say, hey, throughout the entire world, we're going to collect and we are going to start a mass movement and mass information movement to spread information about solar throughout the whole world. So that's what we really need. That is how change will happen. That's the only way change is going to happen in a large enough way that will make a difference. All right, there you go. Let's keep going. But while they have been playing patience, power has been playing poker. The radical right insurgency has swept all before it, crushing the administrative state, destroying public protections, capturing the courts, the electoral system, and the infrastructure of government, shutting down the right to protest and the right to live. While we persuaded ourselves that there is no time for system change, they proved us wrong by changing everything. The problem was never that system change is too big and the problem is never that system change is too big and ask or takes too long. The problem is that incrementalism is too small and ask. Not just too small to drive transformation, not just too small to stop the tidal wave of revolutionary change rolling in from the opposite direction, but also too small to break the conspiracy of silence. Only a demand for system change directly confronting the power driving us to planetary destruction has the potential to match the scale of the problem and to inspire and mobilize millions of people required to generate effective action. Right, and this requires mass movement and means everyone working together, and that's the only way. I mean, if I had a bunch of bunch of open source developers, I would put together this umbrella to bring everyone together. That is my dream. That is my goal. If anyone's watching and you've got a team of 5 or 6 open source developers or something, and you want to do this, let me know, because I really want to do this. This is the only way. I mean, not that we have to put this together so fast and get it out to. We have to get the Green Party and the Socialist parties and the Democratic Socialist, right? Get them together on here to work together. The People's Party, Forward Party, all the left-leaning religious organizations like the Unitarians, the Unitarian Universalists, the Humanists, right? The environmentalist groups. Get them all together under this, and then go. All right. All this time, environmentalists have been telling people we face an unprecedented existential crisis while simultaneously asking them to recycle their bottle tops and change their drinking straws. Green groups have treated their members like idiots, and I suspect somewhere deep down the members know it. Their timidity, their reluctance to say what they really want, their mistaken belief that people aren't ready to hear anything more challenging than this micro-consumerist bullocks carries a significant share of the blame for global failure. And part of this, why this is done, is capitalism, because capitalism is all about a level of toxic individualism. So that's the lens through which we think in many ways. So that's why that's why people glom onto this. Like, what can I do, right? When it's not individuals, it's the system at large, of course, that is creating the problem, but also the rich people. And the rich people and the corporations specifically push this individualist movement towards working towards climate change. That way, they aren't the ones who are held responsible. It's a redirect. There was never a time for incrementalism. Far from being a shortcut to the change we want to see, it is a morass in which ambition sinks. System change, as the right has proved, is and always has been the only fast and effective means of transformation. True statement. Yeah, and that's kind of what, I mean, I'm not all that knowledgeable on communism, socialism, those movements, but that's all ultimately what they talk about, I believe. It's, you cannot get the changes you want without mass transformation and quick systemic transformation. That's specifically what communism is about, right? They believe that you can't get to that level of systemic change required to bring in, quote, communism without, as they say, violence and war. It can only be taken by force. Now, what is the critical mass for socialism? It's like 3.5%. Social change. Critical mass. Nope. Social movements. It's really small. Oh, come on, where is it? Come on. It's mostly just come on. It's academic stuff. Okay. It's pretty small. It's like a 3.5% is the difference. .5% population or 1.5% of the population. It's not that much of the population, and that's the reason why you need to get a large umbrella organization to keep all the leftists together. Then we can get to that critical mass fairly quickly. Some of us know we want private sufficiency, public luxury, donut economics, which is pretty cool, participatory democracy, and an ecological civilization. Okay, all right, that sounds good. And none of these are bigger asks than those the billionaire press has made and largely achieved. The neoliberal revolution that has swept away effective governance, effective taxation of the rich, effective restraints of power of business and oligarchs, and increasingly effective democracy. That's true. So let's break our own silence. Let's stop lying to ourselves and others by pretending that small measures deliver major change. Let's abandon the timidity and tokenism. Let's stop bringing buckets of water when only fire engines will do. Let's build our campaign for systemic change toward the critical 25% threshold of public acceptance, beyond which a range of scientific studies suggest social tipping points happen. Okay, I've read it's much, much lower than that. 25% is huge. It's a huge number. Okay, interesting. So they say 25%. I feel clear about what effective political action looks like than I have ever done. I feel clearer about what effective political action looks like than I have ever done. But a major question remains, given that we have left it so late, can we reach the social tipping point before we hit environmental tipping point? Yeah, no, we're already beyond the environmental tipping point. I mean, we are in the end of days right now, today. It's just bring out the popcorn, we're all totally and completely fucked, right? Unless we get that mass systemic change. And as I've said before on this channel, right, that if the United States is not one of the world leaders on climate change, then it's extinction. Period. Full stop. Okay, just a little bit more on climate change. I'm really hoping you guys can hear me because I can see it going up here on OBS. So there's sound going through. I just hope it sounds okay. Just let me know if you're listening if I sound okay, because I have no idea. All right, here's some stupidity here. This is from Reuters. This is from beginning of the month. Yeah, 6th July. So, European Parliament backs labeling gas and nuclear investments as green. Like, what the fuck, Chuck? Brussels, July 6th. The European Parliament on Wednesday backed EU rules labeling investments in gas and nuclear power plants as climate friendly, throwing out an attempt to block the law that has exposed deep rifts between countries over how to fight climate change. The vote paves the way for the European Union proposal to pass into law unless 20 of the bloc's 27 member states decide to oppose the move, which is seen as very unlikely. The new rules will add gas and nuclear power plants to the EU taxonomy rulebook from 2023, enabling investors to label and market investments in them as green. What the? Oh my God. This is so stupid. So fucking beyond stupid. Everyone should be divesting from fossil fuels. What was it? Divest from BlackRock, divest from Vanguard, divest from all the fossil fuels. And nuclear reactors. Out of 639 lawmakers present, 328 oppose a motion that sought to block the EU gas and nuclear proposal. That's over half. No, over half. Is that over half? Okay, 315. Yeah, that's over half blocked. Over half were against blocking the gas and nuclear proposal. Just over half. Son of a bitch. The European Commission welcomed the result. It proposes the rules in February after more than a year of delay and intense lobbying from governments and industries. Yeah, so like at COP26 last year, was it last year? I think it was last year, or early this year, that there were more people there from the fossil fuel industry than there were climate people. So, you know, they own the process, right? The complementary delegated act is a pragmatic proposal to ensure that private investments in gas and nuclear needed for our energy transition meet strict criteria. EU Financial Services Chief Myreed McGuinness said, the rules have split EU countries, lawmakers, and investors. Brussels redrafted the rules multiple times, flip-flopping over whether to grant gas plants as a green tag. Its final proposal refueled fierce debate about how to hit climate goals amid a crisis over dwindling Russian gas supplies. Well, yeah, I mean, why? The fact that you're still relying on gas is the fundamental problem. This is why getting off fossil fuels, I mean, decades ago, is a national security issue, right? So you get off gas, you're no longer beholden to Russia, no longer beholden to the Arabic countries. I mean, it's getting off fossil fuels is, well, it's a national security issue in and of itself, but it's also a national security issue because of climate change. Gas is a fossil fuel that produces planet-warming emissions, but far less than coal, and some EU states see it as a temporary alternative to replace the dirtier fuel. Nuclear energy is free from carbon dioxide emissions, but produces radioactive waste. Supporters such as France say nuclear is vital to meet emissions-cutting goals, while opponents cite concerns about waste disposal. Right, and that's what my concern too. I'm against it as a green alternative. It is not a green energy solution. But if we have them already if we already have them up and running, leave them there and just get through it and then tear it down when we're done. Slovakian Prime Minister Eduard Heger said the vote result was good for energy security and emissions cutting targets. We'll remain on the way to climate neutrality by 2050. Climate neutrality by 2050? Okay, anyone... If you're aiming for 2050, you're aiming for extinction. Anything less than 2030 and it's just ridiculous. Luxembourg and Austria, which both oppose nuclear power and have warned against labeling gas as green, said they would challenge the law in court. It is neither credible, ambitious, nor knowledge-based, endangers our future, and is more than irresponsible, Austrian Climate Minister Lenore Gewessler said. Climate campaigners criticized the move, with Greenpeace saying it would also mount a legal challenge. This is a poor signal to the rest of the world that may undermine the EU's leadership position on climate action, said Anders Scheld, Chief Investment Officer at Danish pension fund Akademiker Pension. Industry groups welcomed the vote. Of course they did. Ingbert Leibing, managing director of Germany's local utility association, VKU, called it an important sign of the role of natural gas as a bridge to achieving climate goals. The EU taxonomy aims to clear up the murky world of sustainable investing by ensuring any financial products making eco-friendly claims met certain standards. Gas plants, for example, must switch to low-carbon gases by 2035 and meet an emissions limit. How the law will impact investing trends is yet to be seen. The taxonomy doesn't prohibit investments in activities without the green label. I'm dumping a crap load of money into my retirement finally, and I want to find a way to invest in green stuff, but this sort of bullshit makes it difficult. Okay, so there you go. I think that's the last one on climate. Nope, one more. We're just going to hammer climate right now. This is from July 17. So this is fairly recent. Any questions, comments, and suggestions here? I know it's quiet here. Talking to myself. That's okay. I do that all the time anyhow. My wife and daughter will ask me, Daddy, are you talking to yourself again? Do you have to ask? They don't. They're making fun of me. All right, I'm going to take a second here. Yeah, we're tearing through this stuff. All right. All right, this pioneering economist says our obsession with growth must end. All right. And this is, we've read articles on this too before, but this is important, right? And when you look at, some economists are going to talk about degrowth economics, or that we need to stop looking at GDP growth as the end-all be-all of metrics of how a country is doing. You know, my policies talk about this a bit, but I really need to write a whole part on this as well, and to get a little more specific on this. So we need to stop looking at GDP. We need to be looking at inequality levels, at poverty levels, at sustainable energy, at pollution, about green spaces, right? Like profit needs to be like the third set of things to look at. It should be very much a tertiary. Profit and GDP should be like a tertiary metric to look at. Human quality of life and environmental quality. It needs to be the top two things. And my policies are set up much that way. Because in here, I'll go ahead and go over this. In my 8 philosophical pillars for peace, the top 3 things are interdependence, humanity, and the natural world. This is the most important part of my policies here. And I talk about this in my economic policies as well, that specifically our businesses, we need to change how our businesses are valued. Currently, the only thing that matters to businesses, corporations, right, that profit. They must maximize profit. That's all that matters. That's all that they have to do. So as part of my economic policies, I put climate as a tertiary metric. They're not climate. Profit as a tertiary thing to look at. First should be humanity and the natural world. How is your pollution? How is your sustainability? Are you carbon negative? Are you regenerative? Do you have low levels of inequality in your pay disparity? Right? Those things come first. Those things, if every business had to reevaluate their business and its viability by quality of life for people, quality of life for the natural world, and then tertiarily, and in third place, profit, things would radically change. But that's the sort of change that we need to be looking at. And that's the sort of thing that you can hammer down through policy that will push forward degrowth throughout all businesses. Okay, growth is the be-all and end-all of mainstream economic and political thinking. Without a continually rising GDP, we're told we risk social instability, declining standards of living, and pretty much any hope of progress. But what about the counterintuitive? What about the counterintuitive possibility that our current pursuit of growth, rabid as it is and causing such great ecological harm, might be incurring more costs than gains? That possibility that prioritizing growth is ultimately a losing game is one that the lauded economist Herman Daly has been exploring for more than 50 years. In so doing, he has developed arguments in favor of a steady-state economy, one that forgoes the insatiable and environmentally destructive hunger for growth, recognizes the physical limitations of our planet, and instead seeks a sustainable economic and ecological equilibrium. Growth is an idol of our present system, says Daly. Emeritus professor at the University of Maryland School of Public Policy, a former senior economist for the World Bank, and along with the likes of Greta Thunberg and Edward Snowden, a recipient of the prestigious Right Livelihood Award, often called the Alternative Nobel. Every politician is in favor of growth. Daly, who is 84, continues, no one speaks against the growth or in favor of steady state or leveling off. But I think it's an elementary question to ask. Does degrowth ever become uneconomic? Of course it is. It's always uneconomic. Now, if you want to read a good book on economics, as far as this, that's my introduction, the books you need to read, and then read the Donut Economics book. The Donut Economics book is a really, really good read. That's why it's one of my 5 books required for reading. Throw it here in chat for you so you can take a look at it. Yeah, it's right here. It's a really good book. When I was going through, it's like, this is the way I think about it. She's got, if you go down here, here's her, here's one of her speeches. Here's her donut concept here. Here's some links and stuff like that. You can check it all out there. All right, how long is this one? Okay, this one's a bit longer. So this is an interview. All right, so here we go. There is an obvious logic to your fundamental argument in favor of a steady-state economy, which is that the economy, like everything else on the planet, is subject to physical limitations and the laws of thermodynamics, and as such can't be expected to grow forever. What's less obvious is how our society would function in a world where the economic pie stops growing. I've seen people like Peter Thiel, for example, say that without growth, we would ultimately descend into violence. To me, that suggests a fairly limited and grim view of human possibility. In your view of human nature, our willingness to peacefully share the pie just more hopeful than this? Okay, so now, Thiel's a billionaire or millionaire, something like that, right? So him saying that he's saying basically what the millionaires and billionaires are going to have to do to people in order to keep their millions and billions. The only way degrowth is possible is by, taxing the rich, having maximum wages, and things of that nature. You have to take away the rich's wealth, the rich's inequality, the rich's luxury. I mean, their excess, grotesque inequality and luxury, right? The only way degrowth can happen is if we go for a sustainable, equitable society. And it's almost impossible to do within capitalism. The only way to really go for something like this long term is in a resource-based economy, because then it's no rich, no poor. All the resources on the earth are of a common heritage to all of humanity, not one person, one family, one business, or anything like that. And everything is open source, no patents, right? Everything is shared. That's the only way we can really get to a society where humanity matters, where the environment matters. You can't really get long term to a society that cares about humanity and the natural world while under a monetary system, because in the end, exploitation, sociopathy, is going to come back into power, because conservatism, sociopathy, exploitation will always organize better than those of us who care, who live with compassion. It's not a matter of if conservatives take over again, it's just a matter of when the corporations take over and destroy everything. And that's because monetary systems rewards exploitation and sociopathy. That's just the way it is. And yeah, to get beyond that, resource-based economy. All right, first, I'm not against growth of wealth. I think it's better to be richer than to be poorer. The question is, does growth as currently practiced and measured really increase wealth? Is it making us richer in any aggregate sense? Yeah, this is the whole question here. Aggregate, no, of course not. It increases inequality. The rich get richer while the poor get poorer. Or might it be increasing costs faster than benefits and making us poorer? Yes. So if you look at, there's a study done, I can't remember what it was. I think it was if fossil fuel industry, if all those businesses had to take into account their negative externalities, the pollution, the people getting sick, right, the cleanup, then none of those businesses would ever be profitable, right? So again, people getting sick, pollution, destroying the environment, right? Those are human concerns, human quality of life concerns, environmental quality of life concerns, right? If we made businesses, if we rated businesses off that, made them clean that stuff up and that sort of thing, then yeah, none of them would ever be profitable, because they're not profitable, meaning they're inflicting, these businesses are violent just by virtue of their existence, inflicting violence, violence through, they're inflicting systemic violence upon people through pollution and sickness, and onto the environment by environmental destruction and pollution. Okay, there's nothing subtracted from GDP, but the libertarian notion is logical. If you're going to be a libertarian, then you can't accept limits to growth, but limits to growth are there. I recall that Kenneth Boulding said there are two kinds of ethics. There's a heroic ethic, and then there's an economic ethic. The economic ethic says, wait a minute, there's benefits and costs. Let's weigh the two. We don't want to charge right over the cliff. Let's look at the margin. Are we getting better off or worse? The heroic ethic says, hang on, hang the cost, full speed ahead, death or victory right now. Forward into growth. I guess that shows a faith that if we create too many problems in the present, the future will learn how to deal with them. Do you have faith? He laughs. No, I don't. Historically, we think that economic growth leads to higher standards of living, lower death rates, and so on. So don't we have a moral obligation to pursue it? Okay, so yeah, right. And this is going through the demographic transition sort of a thing, right? As societies go from, third, second world to first world country, that you've got to increase in healthcare, sanitation, education, right, and other resources. So as your resources go up, quality of life goes up, and then, yes, death rates and everything else goes down too, because inequality goes down. As inequality goes down, everything else gets better by and large. In ecological economics, we've tried to make a distinction between development and growth. When something grows, it gets bigger physically by accretion or assimilation of material. When something develops, it gets better in a qualitative sense. It doesn't have to get bigger. An example of that is computers. You can do fantastic computations now with a small material base in the computer. That's real development. The art of living is not synonymous with more stuff. People occasionally glimpse this, and then we fall back into more. Okay, so what you're looking at here is, and I talk about this, right? You can do fantastic computations now with a small material base in the computer. So this is pointing to technical efficiency, right? I talk about the two types of efficiency here: market efficiency, profit efficiency, or technical efficiency. And this is small material base in the computer doing a huge amount of computations. That's technical efficiency, right? As your efficiency goes up in manufacturing and stuff like that, that's technical efficiency. That's what a resource-based economy uses or rewards. Whereas capitalism, monetary systems, right, it rewards profit efficiency, market efficiency. Now, you can have an increase in technical efficiency, but that will also be a benefit only if it can bring more profit. If it can't bring more profit, it's not going to be pursued. And that's why a lot of our research is driven by, corporations. This is some of the issues with science and research that's going on, that the people with money, because they want profit, because the system is driven off profit, they pay scientists to do research that would potentially benefit them through. They pay scientists and researchers to engage in research and development on things that will bring them more profit. It's not about technical efficiency, specifically making life better and being more efficient. It's about, if we can make something more efficient, we'll only do it if it brings us more profit. That's just the way it is. It's profit efficiency. But how would a country continue to raise its standard of living without growing GDP? It's a false assumption to say that growth is increasing the standard of living in the present world, because we measure growth as growth in GDP. If it goes up, does that mean we're increasing standard of living? We've said that it does, but we've left out all the costs of increasing GDP. We really don't know that the standard is going up. If you subtract for deaths and injuries caused by automobile accidents, chemical pollution, wildfires, and many other costs induced by excessive growth, it's not all clear. Exactly right. And this is, again, taking into account the negative externalities, the things like pollution and poverty and things like that aren't taken into account with the business doing business. Now, what I said is most true for richer countries. Certainly for some other country that's struggling for subsistence, then by all means GDP growth increases welfare. They need economic growth. That means that the wealthy part of the world has to make ecological room for the poor to catch up in an acceptable standard of living. That means cutting back on per capita consumption, that we don't hog all the resources for trivial consumption. So I don't know if this is true, but I'll go with it. Ultimately, my concern with the emerging markets, second, third world countries, is, of course, corruption. That's a lot of what you find in various countries. That as, sure, GDP goes up, the inequality is still going up, and the rich get richer, as it usually does, and the poor still get poorer. Sure, there may be, over time, there's always an increase in the quality of life. How quickly that goes depends on how much corruption there is. The more corruption, the slower it's going to go. That's the way it is. You said make ecological room, which brings to mind the arguments you've made about how we've moved from an empty world to a full one, but how do we know that our world is full and that we're operating near the limits of the planet's ecological capacity? What I call the empty world was full of natural resources that had not been exploited. What I call the full world is now full of people that exploit those resources, and it is empty of resources that have been depleted, and the spaces that have been polluted. So it's a question of empty of what and full of what. Is it empty of benefits and full of cost, or full of benefits and empty of cost? That gets to the point of paying attention to the costs of growth, right? Just the direct costs of growth and the indirect costs of growth, so the negative externalities. So like we talk about here, right, if we shift to resource-based economy, of course, get rid of the market efficiency, the drive for profit, and look at actual technical efficiency, right, computers getting smaller, then it also becomes about making sure everyone has a great, amazing quality of life. So that's what we really, really need. The failure of a growth economy to grow is a disaster. The success of a steady state economy not to grow is not a disaster. It's like the difference between an airplane and a helicopter. An airplane is designed for forward motion. If an airplane has to stand still, it'll crash. A helicopter is designed to stand still, like a hummingbird, so it's a comparison between two different designs. The failure of one does not imply the failure or success of the other. But in order to move from our present growth economy to a steady state economy, That's going to imply some important design principles, some changes in the fundamental design. Let's say that tomorrow the United States government says it recognizes the need for ecological balance and is going to de-emphasize growth. Wouldn't every other country have to make the same decision for it to have the desired ecological effect? Okay, so yes, and as I've said, if the United States is not on the vanguard for the war on climate change and the drive for a more ethical world, then nothing's going to happen, or not in any speed that matters. But if the United States is at the forefront, the amount of power and money that we have to throw around will make radical difference and will drive other countries to do it. And honestly, the United States is what is standing between the world pursuing many different policies for climate change and ecological balance and inequality, the destruction of inequality and that sort of a thing, because the United States is, cooing Central South America and the Middle East. They cooed Ukraine, right? To engage in the proxy war that we're having now with Russia, the coups, and all that sort of stuff. So if the United States is the leader in this sort of stuff, then, like I've said, things will change radically. That's a very difficult question. If you try to enact laws for counting the ecological cost of your production in the United States, and then you enter into trading relations with another country that does not count the cost, they have a competitive advantage, right? They may ruin themselves in the long run, but in the short run, they're going to undersell you. This creates huge problems for free traders because the answer to the problem is to have a tariff to protect the U.S. industry. At one time, I would have tended to favor moving toward a global government. I don't know what changed my mind. Perhaps spending 6 years at the World Bank made me think that global governance looks like a chimera. I think you're stuck with nation states, but this is globalism versus internationalism. So, right, as long as you have a monetary system, competition is always going to be a thing, and that's fundamentally the thing that makes sure that nothing is ever going to work in the long run. It's countries competing against each other for money, for profit, for resources, instead of everyone working together. Globalism says to erase national boundaries. Let's have one global system that we manage globally. Internationalism says national boundaries are important, but they're not the ultimate thing. This was the philosophy behind the Bretton Woods agreements. We said we have a world of interdependent nations which are fundamentally separate but try to be cooperative. That's the model that we're stuck with. So the best road forward is for nations to try to move toward a steady state and accept the fact that you're going to need to have some tariffs and hope that the resulting benefits are sufficient to convince other nations to follow suit. So, yeah, you can do tariffs, of course. And so we look at my policies and we go to economies for the common good. If you have not if you have not watched this video, go ahead and watch it. Ultimately, what we would end up doing, and this is a part of my policies as well, is that as you pursue a more steady state economy, you need to start rating your businesses based on how good they are for humanity and how good they are for the environment, right? So the lower the inequality in the business, the lower the pollution is, or the high, if they have, if they're doing recycling, or even have a regenerative business process, then they may even have a negative tax, so that they're actually getting a tax. They're getting money back to support such a great company. Those who have high levels of inequality and pollute a lot, they'll have much higher taxes, like 120%, 150% taxes. And once you start, so I envision this as like A, B, C, D, E, F, or something like that. So that if you have like a B or higher rating for environment and, people, that you get the right to have access to city and, federal government contracts. If you don't have that, then you don't get any. Very similar to, we could do that similar rating to those countries outside of ours. So if you don't have the appropriate rating, then we're not going to really trade with you. And then that way that forces, or that the taxes, the tariffs will increase as a penalty to help push you towards doing the right thing. Now, it's not that simple. As I talk about my policies, that if we want to help shift towards climate change and to fight that, the global north, the United States, needs to give trillions and trillions of dollars to the global south because of all the harm that the United States has done. Well, the United States needs to give it trillions to them. Also, Britain, one of the primary imperialist countries, needs to give trillions to the global south. And then we need to push them towards education, healthcare, sanitation, but shifting them to sustainable energy. So you have this rating scale and tariffs, and then you throw the money at them and make sure that they do the thing that they need to do in order to shift to sustainable energy. And a shift to sustainable, if not regenerative, economy. That will help make sure that they are keeping up, that they aren't being left behind economically because we've been looting them for hundreds of years. All right. A lot of what you're talking about has to do with getting humanity from individuals to corporations to governments to accept the idea of having enough, and that constraining the ability to pursue more is a good thing. Those ideas are basically anathema to modern Western society and especially certain notions of liberty. So what would the inflection point or mechanism be that might move people away from that mindset of more? So how do you envision a successful steady-state economy? Well, first, back up and say, how do you envision a successful steady-state Earth? That question is easier because we live in one. Earth is not expanding. We don't get new materials. We don't export stuff to space. So you have a steady-state Earth. And if you don't recognize that, well, there's an education problem. But again, there's this heroic ethic and economic ethic. Maybe the heroic ethic is the right one, but religion's counsel is to pay attention to the cost. Don't make people worse off. And so this really gets into resource-based economy. Again, I'm talking about this. I just wish these people had heard about this and made the connection, right? Because when you're going, let me pull this up. My post here on how might the resource-based economy come into being. I talk about the math because this is super important to understand. When a resource-based economy is all about is all about math. And that starts here. Okay, yes. So So if you want to know how to do a steady state, and that's basically what a resource-based economy is about. Well, it's not just steady state, but shifting to a regenerative economy. So the first thing you do is declare all resources of the planet a common heritage to all of humanity. Not just one, again, like I've said before, not just one person, one business, one country, but all of humanity, and to be used for the benefit of all of humanity. Without this step, there is no resource-based economy. Once you do all resources as a common heritage of all of humanity, that effectively ends businesses, that ends nation states, that gets rid of competition. Because now it's a question of, okay, so if all of our resources have to be used for the betterment of all of humanity, how do we do that? So how do you do that? So the first part is a global resource survey. You have to take a resource of all the resources you have in your area. Plants, trees, crops, animals, insects, air, whatever you have. Everything that you might have that, can be used for whatever. And what is their quality? Do you have surplus? Do you have a deficiency of some stuff? Then you do a sustainable resources calculation. So you know what resources you have. Then you have to figure out how much you're using. So you take a look at all the resources on the planet and figure out how you're using them, and figure out if you're using it in a way that's not sustainable, or if it is sustainable, or if you currently have a surplus, or if you're making more than you need, right? Then you also have to figure out what is the range of conditions that humanity thrives in. Like how much green space, how much quality of housing, quality of education, healthcare, right? And you need to do that math, figure out what is that range, and then you figure out what is the carrying capacity of the Earth. So you know what resources you have, whether you're sustainable or not, and you know what conditions humanity best thrives in, then you can figure out how many people our planet can support. Once you have that number, then you can figure out what sort of things you have to change. So I'll give you a link to this because there's a great video by Peter Joseph. Go down here. Talking about that math. Let's go here, right here. Yeah. So here's the video by Peter Joseph, and that's the book. Where's the video? Here's the video here. And here's another text link that you can read about this. Read about the math. So that's how it's done. This is the steps you go through to do that. Okay, let's get back here. How do you envision a successful state economy? First, okay, we read that already. All right. Yeah. All right, so do religious beliefs influence your economic ideas? Unfortunately, they do. A person's religious beliefs will influence your economic ideas. Obviously, if you're right wing, you don't care about people. As long as you're okay, everything's fine. Fuck you, I got mine. That's the whole right wing politic. I'll start with the second part of that question. When you study economics, you're looking at the relationship between ends and means. You want to allocate your means so as to maximally satisfy your ends. But traditionally, economics has begun with what I would call intermediate means and intermediate ends. Our intermediate ends might be a good diet, education, a certain amount of leisure, health, the benefits of wealth. We dedicate our means toward these intermediate ends. Our intermediate means are commodities that we're able to produce, food and industrial goods, education. Economics is going from intermediate means, which are limited, to intermediate ends, which economics says are unlimited. I say, let's not just talk about intermediate means, let's ask what our ultimate means are. What is necessary to satisfy our ends, and which we ourselves cannot make but must take as given? Is there an answer to such a big question? I think there is. I learned from my old professor, Georgescu Rogan, that it's matter and low entropy energy. You need matter and energy to accomplish your physical ends, but the first law of thermodynamics says that matter and energy can never be destroyed or created. You can change its form, and all processes change that form from low entropy, useful entropy to high entropy, useless energy. Our ultimate means are constrained by the entropy law, but is there an ultimate end? That's hard to answer. Can you give it a shot for me? I think we're all in the position where we have to try to answer it for ourselves, but I can rule out the current answer, which is that growth is the ultimate end. Now, instead of that, you could say spiritual improvement is the ultimate end. That gets you into fundamental religious questions. What is the meaning of life? Where did I come from? What's going to happen when I die? These are questions people used to think of as fundamental. Now they're marginal, unscientific. My critique of economics as it exists today would be that it is too materialistic because it does not consider the relationship between the ultimate ends and intermediate ends. At the same time, economics is not materialistic enough because it also refuses to deal with the ultimate means. It does not ask questions about the fundamental limits of the entropic nature of the world, of matter and energy, and adapting to these physical limits. Well, let me stick with the ultimate ends for a second. What do you think the meaning of life is? Well, evolutionarily, it's about procreation, right? Everyone has an answer to that, and even if it's just to punt, but I'm a Christian. I do think there's a creator. I don't think that you can say life is an accident, which is really what scientific materialism says. Neo-Darwinism has gotten a free ride philosophically for a long time. When you calculate the compound probability of all these infinitesimally probable events happening at once to generate life, it becomes quite absurd. The neo-Darwinist types say, yes, we can accept that that's mathematics. It's totally improbable that life should have originated by chance in our universe, but we have infinitely many unobserved universes. Infinitely many universes unobserved. Mathematically, it could have happened, and our universe is the lucky one? Well, of course it is, because we're here. I mean, hello. They look down their noses at religious people who say there's a creator. That's unscientific. What's the scientific view? We won the cosmic lottery. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. We won the cosmic lottery. That's it, right? I mean, How long have we been searching for life in the cosmos? And we found nothing. And that's, I mean, you have to get into the Fermi paradox, things like that. And like, why isn't there other life out there that we know of, that we can detect? It's honestly because we won the lottery. We won the just the right conditions in the planet at the right time, and ideas and life started to grow. Single cell organisms eventually became multi-cell organisms into plants and fish and animals and everything like that. It's exactly what it is. We won the cosmic lottery. We spent a lifetime arguing rationally and diligently for ideas, and there is real discussion happening about alternatives to economy predicated solely on growth, but growth is still king. Is that at all disappointing? Well, it is disappointing, of course, because we're all going to die. All life on this planet is going away, but that's just the natural result of capitalism. It's sociopathic. It wants the only thing it cares about is profit. If it doesn't bring us profit, they don't care. Full stop. My duty is to do the best I can and put out some ideas. Whether the seed that I plant is going to grow is not up to me. It's just up to me to plant it and water it. Of course, I don't think burning the world is ethically mandated by the ultimate end, so I'd like to see the ideas of ecological and steady-state economics move forward. But you're asking about disappointment. I get a lot of criticism in the sense of, I don't like that, that's unrealistic. I don't get criticism of the more rational sense of, your presuppositions are wrong, or the logic which you reasoned from is wrong. That is a disappointment. George Rogan made many of the same arguments, and he was also completely ignored. In his case, he had made other contributions to mathematical economics, which should have given credibility to his more radical ideas, but didn't. I lack that independent thing, so it's even more unlikely that I'd be taken seriously, but unlikely things do happen. Okay, so there's that. There's that. Yeah, so growth, having an economy based on growth is the problem. All right. Now we're going to get into, this is a short one. I think we're getting some longer ones starting here in a little bit. All right, here we go. This is from 7 hours ago. This is from Insider. Any questions, comments before we move on? I know I'm the only one here, but you never know who's watching. All right. New assault rifle being sold to civilians is twice as powerful as the AR-15 and capable of shooting right through bulletproof vests. Awesome! Sig Sauer rifles are displayed during the NRA annual meeting and exhibits at the K. Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center on May 5th, 2018 in Dallas. This is in 2018. A gun company is marketing an assault rifle that can shoot through bulletproof vests to civilians, report says, amid ongoing debates about gun control following a string of deadly mass shootings. Sig Sauer's MCX Spear is the civilian equivalent of the U.S. Army's NGSW Next Generation Squad Weapon Rifle, specifically created to tear through body armor, the Daily Beast reported. It'll shoot through almost all of the bulletproof vests worn by law enforcement in the country right now. Ryan Bussey, a former firearms company executive, now a senior policy analyst with the Giffords Law Center, told the outlet. The gun fires bullets with twice the kinetic energy as those from an AR-15, AR-15 has longer range and has a noise suppressor that could make a gunman harder to locate, the outlet reported. The MCX Spear was developed with direct input from the U.S. warfighters to provide more power, distance, and accuracy to replace the M4 rifle platform, the company's website says. Making the gun commercially available raises questions about the possible outcomes if it were to get into the hands of a mass shooter. Policy analyst Bussey told the outlet that while the AR-15s are lighter and more maneuverable than MCX Spears, bullets from the latter can hit much harder over greater distances. Bussey said the gun could help mass shooters become a long-range sniper with an AR-15 style gun. Sig Sauer is also the company responsible for making the semi-automatic AR-15 style rifle that was used in the Orlando nightclub shooting in 2016 that left 49 people dead. The company said that MCX Spear would be available at select dealers. Firearm Blog first reported in January. In the press release, Ron Cohen, president of and CEO Sig Sauer Inc., said it was a rare opportunity for passionate consumers to own a piece of history. One of the dealers said that the arms manufacturer sent out 2,500 and 5,000 of the weapons, and they sold out quickly despite the hefty manufacturer suggested price tag of $8,000, the Daily Beast said. Yeah, that's fucking expensive, dear God. A customer service representative for Sig Sauer told the outlet that more weapons would soon be shipped to gun stores at lower price than the first edition models. I know it's coming, the representative told the outlet. We're trying to get these things out as fast as we can, get as many guns as we can out the door. High-powered AR-15 style weapons used in recent mass shootings, including Buffalo, Uvalde, and Highland Park, that left 38 dead, were all legally purchased in the U.S. A Highland gunman fired off more than 70 rounds from the rooftop onto crowds of innocent parade-goers below during the rampage in the Chicago suburb. House Democrats have been working to advance a bill to ban certain semi-automatic weapons in response to the recent spate of mass shootings using such weapons. Yeah, no one should have access to that. That's just messed up. Super messed up. There you go. Another weapon to worry about going in the hands of, well, it's an expensive gun, at least on the first edition. I don't know if that's what the second edition guns are going to be priced at. Whoops, did that wrong. Backwards. I had this tweet from someone who caught this somewhere, and I couldn't find it. I wanted to find it because it gave his, recount of how horrible catching the monkeypox was. All right, this is from today. NPR, Global Health. The World Health Organization declares monkeypox a public health emergency. The World Health, blah, blah, blah. I have decided that the global monkeypox outbreak represents a public health emergency of international concern, WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said. Issuing a public health emergency of international concern enhances coordination and sharing of resources and information among nations. The declaration comes even though the World Health Organization Emergency Committee, considering whether or not to issue the emergency declaration, had failed to reach a consensus. Tedros said the outbreak is spreading rapidly and there is a clear risk of further international spread. The monkeypox outbreak is largely among men who have sex with men and have multiple sexual partners. There are more than 16,000 cases globally, and according to the Centers for Disease Control, 2,891 cases have been confirmed in the U.S. There are vaccines available for monkeypox, but those supplies are strained. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, 191 doses have thus far been delivered to states and city health departments. Health and Human Services say the federal government will have close to 7 million doses by mid-2023. Okay, so I want to make sure you guys understand this. This is not an STD. I know they're trying to concentrate it here as it's a gay person thing. It's not a same-sex issue. It can be spread through the air, although it's very difficult to get it through the air. You have to be in a closed environment, no good ventilation for quite a while in order to get it spread through the air. So that's less of a problem. How it is actually spread is through touch, through getting on your skin and something like that. So if you're in close proximity to a bunch of people and someone has it, most likely, and someone's touchy-feely, then there's a good chance they're going to be spreading this shit all over the place. Man, from what I read in that one tweet of the guy who had it, he was gay, and he did, he was busy during some sort of LGBT event, right? He got it, and it was really bad. Really bad. So there you go. I'll have to look into seeing if we can get the vaccine. All right, any questions about this? questions, comments, suggestions before we move on? Sir, yes, sir. How's my voice? If anyone's watching, I'm. It's not going through my GoXLR. It's going straight from my microphone to my computer and into OBS. And I don't have any controls on it at all. I did this like right before I started because I tested my mic again. I still had that sound, the static when I speak. All right, this is from yesterday. From the Lever, Amazon joins the Medicare privatization spree. Of course he would. Jeff Bezos, the retail behemoth, has acquired One Medical, which is in the Medicare privatization business. Fucking fuckity fuck. Amazon, the $1.25 trillion company founded and led by Washington Post owner Jeff Bezos, has announced that it is acquiring One Medical, a private equity-backed primary care provider that generates over half of its revenue from Medicare. While Amazon's profits from its core consumer retail business are dwindling, in part because of heightened competition from brick-and-mortar retailers that were shut down at the beginning of COVID-19 pandemic, the corporation's cloud computing division, Amazon Web Services, continues to enjoy robust profits thanks in part to generous government contracts. Now, Amazon could be attempting to build on that federal largesse by seeking to milk revenue from Medicare, the national health insurance program for seniors and people with disabilities. Now, my fucking God, Medicare. So like 2 years ago, I just edited a video on Medicare because I was working for my county government as their IT department, and then they were putting a video out on, 2021 Medicare or whatever. So, information was like an hour long, and it was fucking enraging. Just listen. I mean, the lady, it's not the lady's problem. She's just giving the information, right? She just works with this. But just how fucked up Medicare is, how expensive it is, how much of a fucking bother it is for people who are, old and just not feeling well. They have to fucking go through all this bullshit and still not get their fucking medical bills paid. It's just fucking, God, it's stupid. It's just really, it's enraging. Really, if you want to learn about this, go ahead and seriously take a look at what Medicare is, how to get it, and all that sort of stuff. It's really, really bad. Really bad. Amazon, which has broad market power, reach, and influence, could use its new platform to advance the cause of Medicare privatization at a much more aggressive pace. The consequences wouldn't just mean more taxpayer dollars funneled to the mega corporation, but also Medicare recipients facing a health care system with ever more resources being allocated to profit instead of care. The deal must go through normal regulatory approval processes. Advocates have pledged to oppose it. Amazon has no business being in a major player in the healthcare space, and regulators should block this $4 billion deal to ensure that it does not become one, said Krista Brown, a senior policy analyst at the American Economic Liberties Project, which advocates on antitrust issues, in a statement. She added in an interview, "They won't take Amazon, the largest player in healthcare. It won't make Amazon the largest player in healthcare, but it will further dissolve integrity that is already on shaky territory with the healthcare system." As the Lever reported in April, President Joe Biden's Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services has expanded a Medicare privatization scheme, oh my fucking God, launched under Donald Trump. I heard about this, but I haven't seen it somewhere. So Joe Biden has expanded the Medicare privatization scheme launched under former President Donald Biden. Grizzly Bear, how you doing? It's good to see you. How's my mic sound? It's not going through my GoXLR. Does it sound like crap? I can't hear it myself. I'll see if I can mess with it today. I switched it like right as I was starting the stream because I could still hear the static. It's good? Okay. Awesome. Good to hear. Good to hear. I'll listen back to this episode afterwards. So what's up with you? How's your weekend so far? My daughter is at my parents' house currently, and she's probably helping out with my mom. My mom has she's got ducks and chickens out there, and she's got kind of a a huge garden thing going on there, so she'll be out there helping with that. After the wife gets done with teaching yoga, she'll go pick her up and bring her back, which is pretty much shortly after the stream gets done. Oh, yeah. That sucks. Yeah, being away from work means, you have to catch up, and that's a bitch. My boss has COVID, though it's been pretty mild for her. It's her second time catching it, but it's been pretty mild. She was out for like 2 or 3 days, and then she was back on. We're 100% virtual, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But that sucks. Hope it's not too horrible for you. Yeah, do you have a lot of work to catch up on? Oh, ooh, yeah. That sucks. Yeah, I'm on a diet currently, paleo AIP, paleo for autoimmune protocol. Tons of work. I'm sorry to hear that. That's going to be super stressful. My wife is big into meditation, and she likes oh my God, what is it? Binaural beats. If you want to try something out like that. I'm actually started to do this a little bit. I'm just trying to figure out my schedule. I think for lunch, I've done this like twice. Listen to a half an hour binaural beats one, and then do some stretching, some yoga up here. I need another yoga mat up here. What is it? It's what the fuck is it? There's a specific Insight timer. That's what it is. Yeah, you can get the app on your phone, and this is what I use on the phone. They've got just shitloads of meditation stuff. Maybe that can help focus you and calm you down while you're stressing out about things. I do need to get into meditation a lot more, but look for Insight timer on your phone, and there'll be some good stuff in there. I use a binaural beats thing from here, which is like a half an hour. It's like cosmic something or something. I don't have it linked here, but I have it linked at work, since I do it on my work computer. Something to think about. I bet you are. Where am I? Here we go. No? Yes. Yeah, just got done with this. Yeah, so that'd be one thing. Do some yoga, do some meditation. Listen to binaural beats. That'll help hopefully reduce your stress a little bit. Makes me tired a little bit when I was doing it. I tried doing it at lunch, so 2 times I've done it. So normally, I breathe up here in my chest, but I got down to... we've gone through a lot of stuff. So this is Amazon is looking to buy a Medicare provider. We got to this. We did a bunch of climate change stuff over here. An assault rifle twice as powerful as the AR-15 is being sold. Monkeypox is being declared a public health emergency. And then we're on to this one. But the most infuriating thing of this whole thing is... Oh, I didn't read the whole thing yet, did I? I didn't. Here we go. So that Joe Biden has expanded the Medicare privatization scheme set up by Trump. Biden, not that we don't think that Biden isn't a Republican or anything, but he's pushing to get Medicare privatized, expand privatization of Medicare. It's fucking pissing me off. Fucking Republicans, right? Oh yeah, I also learned some friends of ours, their daughter had COVID again. Although we were exposed to her, but we were outside, so it's not so much of a big deal. So we've kind of taking it easy. My daughter hasn't caught anything. None of us have caught anything, fortunately, from that. But it's out there. It's out there. Fucking COVID. All right. Medicare provides set payments to provide care for these patients, much like insurance. This arrangement incentivizes IORA and other privatization entities to limit the amount of care that seniors provide, right? So they can get more profit out of it. And all the while, he says stupid shit about the price of insulin. Yeah, that's all he says publicly. Yeah, and he's been trying to privatize Medicare and Social Security for a very long time. So it's not like we know this isn't coming, but yeah, he'll say little things just quotables for people the news to quote, and to make people think, yeah, okay, he's one of us, but he's not. He's a capitalist pig. I don't know if you're on Medicare or anything, but a few years ago when I was working for the county, I had to edit this video on Medicare, and I was so pissed. Listen, Jack, you lying dog-faced pony soldier, right? Yeah. That I was editing this video for Medicare, and I was just so enraged by how much bullshit and how little use Medicare is. I mean, it's better than, I can't say it's better than nothing, but just how much it costs. I mean, it's fucking expensive, and you don't get much out of it. It's just, God, I'm so pissed. Need universal health care is what we need. Universal health care. Anything other than that, and it's just stupid. Continued expansion of Medicare privatization seems integral to One Medical's business model. Oh. Ooh, Jacobin. How long is this? Okay, all right, let's take a look at this. This is from May of this year. Biden's little publicized Medicare privatization scheme is starting to raise alarm bells. Okay. Yeah, fuck this dude. There's good news and bad news about Joe Biden's administration's ongoing pursuit of the direct contracting entity, DCE, also known as ACO REACH. The bad news is that the idea remains a threat to the health of seniors and alarming Trojan horse that could lead to the privatization of Medicare. Yeah, thank you. That's good. I've heard something about it, but I haven't read anything about it. So this is good. The good news is that resistance to it is beginning to gain some traction. Late last month, the Seattle City Council unanimously passed a resolution to stop privatizing the U.S. Medicare system. The resolution, which warns that the introduction of the DCE pilot program opened the door to complete privatization of Medicare. Oh, and urges equity issues be resolved within the traditional Medicare system. It was introduced by Councilmember Teresa Mosqueda, who is far from being a radical. While progressive, Mosqueda has repeatedly butted heads with socialist councilmember Kshama Sawant, watering down the latest proposed Amazon tax, a sign of how potently unpopular the Medicare contracting program is. Okay. 3 days earlier, the Arizona Medical Association, the state's 4,000-member strong American Medical Association chapter, passed a similar resolution in its House of Delegates, calling for the program to be terminated and warning that seniors could find themselves thrown into a money-making system that limits care to provide maximum profit. Of course, because any for-profit entity, that's exactly what's going to happen. Quality of care is going to go down, profits will go up. And that's on top of the normal insurance stuff. The ARMA, which has previously voted down a resolution backing a single-payer healthcare system, also based its opposition on concern for doctors, pointing out they could end up enrolled in the program without choosing to be. It's a good sign for DCE opponents, for whom half the battle has involved simply alerting people to its existence. Though the controversial program began under Donald Trump, the fuckhead Biden administration has quietly continued it, with a late groundswell of opposition earlier this year, forcing the Centers for Medicare Medicaid Services to rebrand it as ARCO REACH. but fundamentally changing nothing about the actual program or what led to such an outcry in the first place. All the while, seniors continue to get mail informing them their doctor is now part of the program, but not to worry because their Medicare benefits haven't changed. But that's not true. ACO REACH's closest comparison is the Medicare Advantage program that carved out a role for private insurers in the public health insurance program. But while Medicare Advantage enrollees are given the option to leave traditional Medicare, ACO REACH specifically targets seniors who have declined to do so. Then whether they like it or not, a profit-seeking third party like a health insurer or private equity-backed firm is allowed to step in and get paid by Medicare to manage the care they get, taking for them as profit whatever they don't spend on the patient. Yeah, that's fucked up. Taking for themselves as profit whatever they don't spend on the patient. Yeah, that's super mega fucked up. Yeah, there's going to be dead people everywhere. Fucking capitalism. Critics have warned that beyond taking the unthinkable step of partially privatizing all of Medicare, CMS has been explicit that it wants to shift everyone now on traditional Medicare into a relationship with an accountable care organization, ACO, by 2030. The idea is ripe for abuse. Oh my God. One only needs to look at the track record of Medicare Advantage to see that what this portends. All right, we'll take a look at that next. Where are you? It was barely 2 weeks ago that the Inspector General of the Department of Health and Human Services issued a scathing report on Medicare Advantage plans, charging there were widespread and persistent problems related to inappropriate denials of services and payment, with the providers involved denying services that would have been approved under traditional Medicare in 13% of cases and denying 18% of reimbursements that met both Medicare and Medicare Advantage rules. Of course, because it's about profit, not saving people's lives. So ACO REACH's continued existence is a serious looming threat to Medicare as we know it and to seniors themselves. And in a sadly typical trend, it's a Democratic president who's trying to get away with gutting Medicare, something a Republican could never hope to get away with. Right, exactly. But the resolutions passed by the Seattle City Council and ARM suggest opposition to the program is building not just at the federal level, but at the local one too. It's a good start, but it's going to take a lot more to defeat it once and for all. And kind of what they did, their Sharma Sawant, they got their local city to post a resolution about things like this. That's something I would, if I were involved in local politics, that's exactly what I want to do. Like if I was at a county representative or whatever, I'd want to pass stuff like this all the time about climate change, about inequality, about slavery, healthcare. Okay, this is from World Socialist website. This is from June, so almost 2 months ago. Biden enforces largest Medicare premium hike in history while funneling more profits to private insurers. Yeah, and that's Medicare already sucks, but this makes it even worse, so much worse. In a move that received minimal media attention last week, the Biden administration reaffirmed its decision to enact the largest Medicare premium hike in the program's 57-year history. The president is also endorsing a plan to funnel more money to private insurance companies and escalating plans to privatize the government insurance program for seniors and those with disabilities. Medicare enrolled 62.7 million people in 2021. You fucking bastard. The White House announced May 27 that Medicare recipients will not see their premiums lowered this year. This is despite the fact that a rate hike confirmed last November was due in large part to projected costs for a drug to treat Alzheimer's disease that have now been lowered. In November 21, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, part of the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, announced an approximately 14.5% increase to premiums for Medicare Part B, which covers doctor visits and some preventative care and outpatient services. The standard monthly premium for those rose from $148 in 2021 to $170 this year. The hike came largely as a result of uncertainty over whether Medicare would cover the cost of Aduhelm, an exorbitantly expensive drug to treat Alzheimer's. Under pressure from the pharmaceutical industry, the controversial drug was approved for use by the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, in June 2021, despite disputes over whether it is effective in treating the debilitating disease. Again, corporations control our government. It's a problem I have with the FDA and whatever the other one is, that the corporations control it. Biogen, the maker of Aduhelm, originally priced the drug at $56,000 a year. Jesus Christ. EPA. Yes, EPA. Yes. $56,000 a year? That's fucking insane. Let's see, how much is that is profit? 56,000 of it? 51,000 of it? After considerable outcry from patient advocates and others, Biogen announced that the drug would cost $28,200, effective January 1st, 2022, when the Medicare premium hike kicked in. In April, Medicare instituted strict rules regarding who could receive Aduhelm, restricting its use mainly to clinical trials. So they cut it in half. So what was happening here is this is what they were going for in the first place. They did double that just so that people would have outcry. Then it's like, oh, okay, well, we'll just cut it, and, we'll cut it just to make people happy. And so now they're making what they want, hoping they could get away with this. On May 27th, the Biden administration said that despite the halving of Aduhelm's cost and also its restriction to a small patient pool, it would not be lowering the monthly premiums deducted from senior Social Security benefits. The administration justified this move on the basis of legal and operational hurdles. In a report to Health and Human Services, Secretary Xavier Becerra, CMS wrote that a mid-year administrative redetermination of Medicare premiums would be prohibitively complex and highly risky, requiring significant resources and unproven technical solutions from the varied entities which manage premium collection payment. It's just a fucking compute. It's a calculation, dude. In other words, we don't want to cut their profits. That's what. In practical terms, this means that Medicare enrollees will not be receiving either a refund on the premium increase already collected this year, nor will premiums be adjusted for the balance of 2022. CMS claims that 2023 premiums will be adjusted to reflect the lowering of the price of Aduhelm and the reduction in the drug's usage. There's no guarantee, however, that such an adjustment will take place, as other price hikes demanded by the pharmaceutical industry, pharmaceutical industry, or other segments of the for-profit healthcare system are highly likely, and the government has seldom rebated money that it has already collected from the population. CMS also makes the fantastic claim that seniors are unlikely to feel the impact of the premium hike due to a 5.9% cost of living adjustment in their Social Security benefits that began in January 2022. Okay, sure, they got a 5.9% increase, but what's the fucking inflation rate? It's like 9%? 10%? Gas and food is jacked up because of climate change and all sorts of shit. Oh yeah, they're definitely going to feel it. They're going to feel it big time. They raised Medicare premiums because they were going to include the drug. Then they said the drug cost was going to be lowered. However, they left. Yep. Yeah, exactly. And that's messed up. It's because they didn't want to do the math. That's their excuse. They didn't want to do the math. But it's really about making sure that they can keep their profits. Oh God. This whole Medicare just pisses me off, and it's just pissing me off even more because of this bullshit. The small increase has already been more than eaten up by rapidly rising inflation hitting food, housing, transportation, and other basic necessities. Yeah, housing too, right? The impact on seniors is particularly dire, with more than 7 million living in poverty and 7.3 million food insecure, according to the Kaiser Family Foundation. Yeah, exactly, because fucking capitalism. The news that 2022 premium hikes will not be refunded or scaled back come as Biden officials are moving forward with an 8.5% increase in payments made to private insurers operating Medicare Advantage plans in 2023. So they get more money. That's good for them. How you doing, man? On this dial, show us where the government touched you. Well, I'm showing you right here where it's touching you. It's touching you right in the jimmy. Yeah, it's how you doing, man? How you feeling? Like a few years ago, I edited a video on Medicare for the county. God, I was so pissed because I listened to the whole thing, so I had to edit it and sound leveling and that sort of stuff. God, I'm so pissed. In this, Biden extending Trump's privatization plan for Medicare. Oh my God, dude. So filled with rage. Yeah, whenever my amazing chatters share links, it's always to piss me off. It always ends up pissing me off because, well, that's the only stuff we watch here. Enraging things. If you're not enraged, you're not paying attention. Fucking Medicare. Fucking Biden. Yeah, a gaming mind is really good at doing that. Sharing stuff that just... He shared that one video that Google and Microsoft were helping fossil fuel industries to be more efficient, using their supercomputers to do that. God, I was so pissed. Instead of using their supercomputers and their computing powers and AI algorithms and stuff like that to increase the efficiency of sustainable energy. God, it's on my environmental policies if you want to take a look at it. The video's there. If you want to be filled with rage too, I talk about it in there specifically. Fucking Biden, okay. All right. Under Medicare Advantage, also known as Medicare Part C, beneficiaries pay their monthly premiums to the federal government but receive coverage from a private insurer for inpatient hospital and outpatient services, typically including prescription drug coverage as well. The establishment of these plans marked a major step in the dismantling of Medicare as a government program. Companies operating these plans are incentivized to limit the amount of medical care received by their enrollees in order to boost profits. Of course, privatization always leads towards shittier care, shittier service, and shittier everything because they want more profit. That's just the way, that's the way capitalism is. Privatization is almost always the wrong answer. Full stop. Hey, how you doing, man? Eli Manning, you're back to Eli Manning. How you doing? We're reading some stuff that's enraging us about Medicare and Biden's continuing Trump's Medicare privatization plan. You're a few years away from that, from having to worry about that, but that's what we're talking about. How's your summer going? You swimming or something? Anything of interest? My daughter is going to the public pool. I'm not overly happy about it, but it's what she's doing. The outdoor pool. I remember when I was young, I lived at the pool, back in the 80s as a latchkey child. Ain't been swimming? Why haven't you been swimming? And if you're not swimming, what are you doing? Starting a revolution, not an actual one. Disclaimer required, right? Good, keep it up. We need more people out there doing that. Because all I do is read, write, and live stream. So someone has to be out there actually doing it. If you want an idea, I talked about this earlier with one of the things I was articles I was reading, what we really need is an umbrella organization that unifies leftists together in various. Yeah, you're for the Green Party, right? In Delaware? Delaware? Is that where you're at? New Hampshire, Delaware? It's been a while. Is it the Green Party? And are they taking you seriously? I know you're my daughter's age. Fuck Green Party? Okay. Who are you? Which party are you working for? It's just a state. I'm from Wisconsin. I say that. It's a big state. I don't know where you live. Exactly. I haven't given you where I live. Well, I've said the town I live in a few times, but that's it. So what party are you working for, and what are you doing for the summer? Hey, Tadots, how you doing? I don't remember you at all. Yep, that's where I live, Baraboo. Green Party of Delaware did the dolphin tweet, and Oh, the dolphin tweet. The party is nonpartisan party of Delaware. Okay. They aren't leftist? Then what are you doing with them? What are they? The dolphin tweet. What was the dolphin tweet? That sounds familiar. Are they libertarian? Okay, Google Green Party dolphin tweet. Okay. Green Party, Delaware, yep. Their dolphin human baby is the future of intelligent life on Earth, and it's the only way we'll let dolphins. What? Libertarian, moderate left, and right ones. Oh, that's gonna be a cluster. Good luck with that. Good luck with that, man. Their dolphin human baby is the future of intelligent life on Earth. I don't know what the hell that means. Okay, that's strange. Okay, you guys can't see it. Let me put it in here. All right, now you can see it. This doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, if they're posting something like that doesn't make any sense, yeah, that's strange. Okay, well, good luck with that. We all put our differences aside and just work. Okay, so you're gonna pretty much have to be issue-centered. Find the issues you agree on, and then work forward on that. Okay, that's good. You get some stuff done that way. Good for you, man. Good for you being busy, especially at the age that you're at. That's awesome. Awesome. Keep it up. You give me hope for our future. Well, yeah. All right, we'll continue on with this. More yummy Medicare stuff. Dr. Susan Rogers, president of Physicians for a National Healthcare Program, told The Lever Medicare Advantage insurers such as United Healthcare, Anthem, and CVS Aetna are celebrating record profits in the tens of billions of dollars. Yeah, I'm trying. She added, their business plan is simple. Inflate their Medicare payments by making seniors look sicker than they are, and then pocket more of those Medicare dollars by ruthlessly denying seniors care. Well, UBI is a part of my policy. Yeah, well, actually, progressive basic income is my policy, but it's I need to find a way to run for office at a higher level. I mean, school board is important, and I may do that again next year. But city, like for the city or the county, would be good too. I would like a much larger scope of work, but I don't know. We'll see. Yes, resource-based economy president. That's what I am exactly. That's my stage 3, resource-based economy stuff. All right, enrollment in Medicare Advantage, signed into law in 1997 by Bill Clinton, has more than doubled over the past decade. In 2021, more than 26 million people were enrolled in a Medicare Advantage plan, or about 42% of the total Medicare population. Private plans have cost Medicare $146 billion since 2008. I've run out of money? Well, in a sense, I have, yes. Definitely. Money sucks. Money is the cause of all of our problems, in one form or another. In addition to hiking Medicare premiums and funneling more money to Medicare Advantage insurers, Biden has expanded Medicare privatization. The Direct Contracting Entity, DCE, program was launched in April 2019 by the CMS during the Trump administration under the auspices the CMS Innovation Center, known as CMMI. I can't say it. Auspices. Under the auspices. There we go. Similar to Medicare Advantage, the DCE program allows intermediary companies to offer unique benefits such as gym memberships. DCE operators range from private insurers to publicly traded companies to private equity firms. As for-profit entities, they are also incentivized to limit patient care, particularly for the critically ill. Yeah, of course. People are going to die for profit. It's all insurance companies is murdering people for fun and corporate profit. That's all it is. We need to get rid of insurance companies and go to universal health care. Specifically, nationalize health care. That's what needs to be done. We need to nationalize our health care. While Medicare patients choose to sign up for Advantage plans, patients can be enrolled in DCE health plans without their informed consent. Remarkably, seniors, for instance, may be auto-aligned to a DCE if any primary care physician they have visited in the past 2 years is affiliated with that DCE. Seniors are being swindled by these plans via methods more unscrupulous than scammers trying to obtain social security numbers over the phone. Notably, CMMI was created under the Affordable Care Act. Of course, fucking Obama, which was signed into law in 2010 by Barack Obama. CMMI's aim was to develop new payment models in Medicare and Medicaid, the government insurance program for the poor, without going through formal legislative process that requires public comment. The DCE program is now being expanded by the Biden administration under a new name, ACO REACH, or Accountable Care Organization, Realizing Equity, Access, and Community Health. That has nothing to do with what they're doing. They're murdering people for fun and corporate profit. That's all they're doing. Democratic Representative Pramila Jayapal's office told the Lever that 350,000 seniors were assigned to DCE plans as of January 2022, none of whom signed up voluntarily. In the U.S. healthcare system, access to and the affordability of medical care is subordinate to the profits of the private insurers, pharmaceuticals, and giant hospital chains, of course. Democratic and Republican politicians alike are concerned with upholding the interests of this market-driven system, not by the needs of patients and healthcare workers. One need only follow the money to see who benefits, of course. Business Insider reports that Biden received roughly $47 million from healthcare industry executives during his 2020 presidential campaign. The leadership of DCE contractor Clover Health donated $500,000 to the main super PAC for Senate Democrats in 2020, while Chamath Palihapitiya, the company's financier, donated $750,000 to the same super PAC, according to the Open Secrets website. Oh my fucking God. Such bullshit. Move this over here. Nope, come on. Slide over here and give me a moment. Come on. All right, I'll do it to you later. Okay, so there's that one. Now we've got, we'll continue finishing this article we were reading earlier from Lever News. That was about the the same thing. So, a continued expansion of Medicare privatization seems integral to One Medical's business model. Now, this article is about Jeff Bezos and Amazon purchasing Medicare One, or One Medical's business, so that they can start benefiting from Medicare. The company's most recent quarterly reports show that more than half of its revenue comes from Medicare. This includes Medicare Advantage plans operated by private health insurers, traditional Medicare fee-for-service payments, and the ACO REACH program. One Medical's most recent annual report notes a significant portion of our revenue comes from government health care programs, principally Medicare, including specifically the ACO REACH privatization model. The filing adds, any changes that limit or reduce the ACO REACH model or Medicare Advantage could have a material adverse effect on our business, results of operations, financial condition, and cash flows. Of course, because if you limit that, then you're less able to murder people for profit. Fuck you guys. Arrgh. Like many mergers, both parties in Amazon's new acquisition benefit from the arrangement. Amazon gets a more stable revenue source just as its retail segment is faltering. While how is Amazon's retail segment faltering? It was going gangbusters starting with COVID, and I'm sure it hasn't gone down at all. How the hell can they say that with a straight face? While One Medical gets Amazon and Bezos' considerable political power. That power has led Congress to seriously consider granting Bezos a $10 billion subsidy for his Blue Origin space exploration boondoggle, as has lead Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. To stall on holding a vote to hold a vote on bipartisan antitrust legislation being championed by Senator Amy Klobuchar. The Klobs. Yeah, that whole Blue Origin thing, fortunately this was denied, but that was fucking messed up. Yeah, so Bezos can lobby senators to get $10 billion for his vanity space program, but the people can't have universal health care, right? The only reason why Bezos and Blue Origin wasn't given the $10 billion is because people were raising hell about it. If people didn't know about it, they would have gotten $10 billion, free of charge. Amazon has a suite of powerful lobbyists at its disposal, including the lobbying firm run by the brother of Steve Ricchetti, who is the counselor to the president. The tech giant is the 8th highest spender on lobbying in the country this year, according to data collected by Open Secrets. The Congressional Progressive Caucus, which is anything but, has led the charge against the ACO REACH model. Representative Pramila Jayapal said in May the ACO REACH program is Medicare privatization hidden in layers of bureaucracy. Essentially, seniors are put into this program, which allows a profit-seeking third party like health insurer or private equity-backed firms to step in and get paid by Medicare to manage the care they get, taking for themselves the profit that is whatever they don't want to spend on the patient. Exactly. But despite opposition from progressives, Biden Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra and CMS Administrator Chiquita Brooks LeSueur have resisted this pressure and continue to implement the program. Observers also have concerns about the privacy impacts of Amazon acquiring One Medical. Oh, yeah. What could they do with that data? Yeah, that's not going to be good. Allowing Amazon to control the healthcare data for another 700,000 individuals is terrifying, said Brown at the American Economics Liberties Project. It will also pose serious risks to patients whose sensitive data will be captured by a firm whose chief information security officer once described access to customer data as a free-for-all. Yikes. Okay, so there is a bunch on Medicare privatization. Questions, comments, suggestions on this bullshit? I mean, yikes. So that should go here. All right, any questions, comments on that? I think we'll have this one article, and then we'll probably be done. Yes, yeah, it started under Trump, and then Biden is pushing it forward. I guess it said 2019 is when it was signed into law, and Biden's like, yeah, let's do that. Let's privatize more. Because, Biden is against Social Security and Medicare. Yeah, like Biden said, nothing will fundamentally change. I assume so. It would have to be done through Congress. What was it? What's it called? Echo Reach. Let's check. I don't think it's called something else, actually. It was renamed to Echo Reach. What did they say? Here, direct contracting entity. This is what it was called. Okay, that's not it. This is 2022. Okay, let's get this by from okay. Actually, I'm gonna get this out of quotes. Why? There was more like this. Makes no sense. Okay. Let's see, how did they... Okay. Here we go. No, it's not Congress. Signs an executive order on Medicare. Oh, go fuck yourself, dude. Seriously. Trump signs executive order on Medicare, says he won't let Democrats steal your health care. No, just the corporations. Let's see. President Donald Trump signed an executive order Thursday that said he would improve private Medicare plans for seniors, slamming Democrats for what he described as putting healthcare under threat with Medicare for all proposals. Fucking Trump. Trump speaking for an hour at a campaign-style rally at a retirement community in Florida offered a few details on his executive order and spent most of his speech attacking the healthcare policies of 2020 Democratic presidential contenders. Okay. And people say that executive orders don't have any weight. Right? Yeah, and Biden could just undo that executive order like that. Assuming that's what this is. Let's make sure that that's what this is. That meaningful improved financing of Medicare. Lowering costs and advantage. Why is that? Okay. Okay, let's make sure that's what that is, because it doesn't mention DCE in it. It doesn't mention any of that in here. Why? Okay, we're not sure if that's what it is. So we checked both of those. No. Yeah, I don't know if that's what it is specifically. I expect that it is, but I don't. Let's try. Medicare. Okay. It's the first one he signed. Doesn't mention this at all. Purchase insurance across state lines. I don't know if that's what this is. I'm not sure. I can't. It's going to take me a little bit longer to find out whether or not that's the case. Sounds like it probably is through the executive order, but I don't know for sure. I wish one of these articles would have been more specific on how that got passed. If anyone has an article on this or knows for sure if that DCE thing was put into effect by his executive order, that would be appreciated. Because I'm curious too. I can't imagine that got through Congress. All right. Oh, this isn't that long. Okay. So this one is, go ahead and throw this in. Get this all up to date. All right. This is from June of last year, almost a year ago. How they stole $50 trillion, how we take it back. I've looked at this a little bit. I don't remember a lot. Oh, why is it? Oh, come on. So, side scrolling, seriously? Bad website, bad. All right. Between the mid-1930s and the mid-1970s, worker organizing and unrest created a degree of economic democracy not achieved since. It was quite an accomplishment. After several decades of increased standards of living for most U.S. workers, corporate actors organized a counterattack that aimed to reverse those gains. The mid-20th century was no golden age, but it does stand as a measure of just how much and just how little economic democracy the existing order will allow. Black and brown workers, for example, saw the gains last and least, but suffered from the austerity counterattack first and foremost. Of course, people of color always suffer the worst. While progressive reforms won during those 4 mid-century decades did help working people, the system still belonged to the bosses and they still called the shots. Yep. Against the backdrop of Cold War anti-communism, the U.S. Congress restricted workers' rights while top labor leaders pledged their allegiance to the empire. New global institutions such as the IMF, which is horrible, were the cutting edge of austerity, protecting the rule of big money by pitting workers versus workers worldwide. Right, so of course, IMF and the World Bank are methods for the global north to engage in economic warfare against the global south. Talk about this various times, but IMF is not good. In the 1970s, the Great Austerity begins. The deep, multifaceted crisis of the late 60s and early 70s undermined the existing social contract. Feeling threatened, the elites shifted costs and risks to where they had historically been, the backs of everyday people. Better, they thought, that workers struggled to survive than begin to dream of democracy and organize themselves into political movements. The most effective corporate strategy was wage reduction. Over the next 4 decades, they cut wages in half for millions and redistributed redistributed at least 50 trillion upwards. The ruling class vision was set out by soon-to-be Supreme Court Justice Lewis Powell in his infamous 1971 memo for the Chamber of Commerce. For Lewis, corporate elites should see themselves as a ruling class and act accordingly. Well, oh my God. While Powell issued the call, the American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC, founded in 1973, a famous right-wing organization, I think set up by the Koch brothers, became the vanguard pushing legislative reforms to suit corporate interests. The crackdown on workers included military reforms. In response to the Vietnam era peace movement, the politicians and generals replaced mass conscription with the illusion of an all-volunteer army. Since 1973, the war machine has vested interest in austerity because poverty and insecurity pushed millions of young people into its ranks. They swap an open form of coercion like the draft for a covert form of coercion, a poverty draft cloaked as opportunity for working class kids. That's exactly right. And this is one of the reasons why the U.S. military-industrial complex is going to fight against anything that reduces poverty. Universal health care, universal education, UBI, universal housing, right? All these things are going to reduce inequality and help lift up those at the bottom. If you lift those up at the bottom, then there's going to be less people who are going to be willing to go into the military. Prison slave labor has a long history. Though it was legalized by the 13th Amendment, unions successfully lobbied to restrict its use during the heyday of the New Deal. By 1979, however, Congress joined the corporate counteroffensive and passed the Justice System Improvement Act and other pet projects of ALEC. New laws opened the door to the rapid expansion of prison labor to match the rapidly growing ranks of the incarcerated. These corporate reforms also cemented public-private partnerships, congressional action, impoverished families, congressional action impoverished families of the imprisoned and drove down wages for all of us by providing the cheapest possible labor for the government and corporations. The military penal system, Congress, the Democrats, and Republicans became the agents of austerity and the tools of corporate power, as they always are. The corporate two-step. The mid-1970s were pivotal. The workers would face greater insecurity as corporations consolidated their positions through a remarkable two-pronged strategy that was decades in the making. On one hand, the corporations successfully gained political rights and personhood under the 14th and First Amendments, gutting the old Constitution and recasting it in their own image. Corporations became we the people instead of actual people, and their vast wealth became free speech. Using the Bill of Rights as their shield, corporations claimed the protection of individuals against the heavy hand of the state. This legal fiction is now law of the land, especially with Citizens United, right? Which made that definitely manifest. At the same time, corporations acted more and more like the tyrannical state itself, even while posing as protected persons. Without political power, they simply could not maximize profits. Maximizing profits through maximizing power became the true goal and true method of neoliberalism. Two landmark Supreme Court decisions, Buckley versus Valeo, 1976, and First National Bank of Boston versus Bellotti, 1978, set the stage for the corporate domination of the electoral process, finally completed with the 2010 Citizens United decision, right? In 1979, the Federal Reserve, long a bastion of corporate power, moved decisively to fight inflation, raising interest rates to historic highs, forcing recession, and boosting unemployment. The reserve army of unemployed workers undermined wages and concentrated power and profits in the hands of big capitalists, just as Karl Marx had observed long ago. Big unions retreat. By late 1970, attacks on workers were codified in labor contracts, most decisively in the 1979 Chrysler bailout. The United Auto Workers, the trendsetter for the U.S. labor since the 30s, buckled under by not just accepting the terms of the bailout, but pitching it as good for workers. The Carter administration and the Democrats, in control of the presidency, House, and Senate, led the way. Of course they did. They and their Republican allies worked with bankers, businesses, and union officials on a $1.5 billion bailout for Chrysler. In classic IMF style, the bankers demanded at least 462 million in cuts to wages and benefits. Jesus Christ. The joint corporate Carter UAW move was an early too big to fail bailout and a sure sign that the merger of the corporation and the state was well underway. It should have let it fail and get bought out by someone. What followed was the long, disastrous era of concession bargaining, as workers and union officials surrendered before the onslaught. By the mid-1980s, the Teamsters and the United Food and Commercial Workers further undermined worker pay and solidarity by agreeing to multi-tiered wage systems. Multi-tiered labor systems were also pioneered in the liberal haven of higher education, where low-paid contingent faculty now far exceeded the tenured minority. Yeah, that's one of the big issues we have with our university system, is that TAs, teachers assistants, teach most of the classes and grade the papers, and they basically don't get paid anything, and they don't have insurance and stuff like that. It's pretty fucking ridiculous. These multi-tiered agreements created new class divisions within unions, as if the racist, sexist, and ageist divisions weren't bad enough, and paid second-class workers with lower wages. The new lower classes were either new employees or the temporary and part-time workers that are now common everywhere. Needless to say, two-tiered labor systems undermine worker solidarity. They mask the conflict between workers and bosses behind the conflict between different classes of workers. It was classic divide and conquer. As unions divided their own members and failed to deliver the goods, they simultaneously turned away from large-scale organizing efforts. The slow retreat of labor unions turned into a demoralizing rout with devastating long-term consequences for the working class. Yeah, so once the unions get gutted, bloop, more money goes to the top. Having a very strong presence of unions in a country generally means more equality, and that's, yeah. Of course, Reagan. The Reagan Revolution. It went from bad to worse when Ronald Reagan took office. He fired striking air traffic controllers and staffed the National Labor Relations Board with hacks hostile to workers' rights. The Reagan Revolution enacted more structural reforms. Republicans and Democrats passed the new tax, budget, money, and debt policies that would complete the groundwork for the ongoing redistribution of wealth. Together, the major parties rigged the economy. Of course, because they always serve the 1%, because that's who the politicians in our federal government serve, and they always have. Here are a few of their achievements. Dramatic cuts to tax rates for corporations and the rich, naturally. Tax on Social Security and unemployment for the first time, never to be reversed. Continue shifting budget priorities towards the military. Debt and money policies to favor dividends, interest, and rent, the income sources of the wealthy. The race to the bottom and the race to the top would continue through the following decades as the U.S. continued structural reforms, such as replacing welfare for the poor with corporate welfare. When Clinton ended welfare as we know it, he flooded the bottom of the labor market with easy-to-exploit, low-wage workers. Gotta love Clinton. The pandemic only accelerated extreme inequalities. Congress propped up the rigged economy with the 2020 CARES Act. CARES was a power play enforcing austerity and inequality for us while subsidizing corporations with trillions. Yes, Obama oversaw one of the largest transfers of wealth to the 1% in U.S. history up to that point. Now, the people did get something out of it. They got some good things out of the ACA, but by and large, it was a huge corporate giveaway. The U.S. government also took the unprecedented step of directly purchasing corporate bonds. The government can retire corporate debt, all right, just not educational or medical debt. Austerity was created by structural changes and can only be repealed the same way. All right, so how we take it back. Let's see what they have to say with this. History follows a twisted and tangled path. By their relentless resistance to reform, the U.S. ruling class is making revolutionary solutions possible, if not inevitable. The rulers' drive for total domination, at home and abroad, sows the seeds of their own defeat. Okay. That's a bit positive. It's okay. Austerity is a form of social control, not an economic necessity. Nothing reveals that more clearly than the simple fact that other wealthy capitalist countries took the path of reform. Right, and like the Nordic countries, which are doing well, they got high levels of equality, universal healthcare, universal education, all sorts of amazing things. Austerity is a choice. Austerity is never has to be done, ever. It is just a way of ensuring that the masses, the peasants, powerless peasants like us, are closer and closer to poverty and powerlessness. It's a way of ensuring that we can't revolt while giving all of the money and power to the rich, as always. We could have labor law reform like the repeal of the Taft-Hartley slave labor bill, the passage and enforcement of the PRO Act, a $25 minimum wage effective immediately, national universal health care, national month-long paid vacations, shorter work weeks, national sick time, parental leave, the dramatic expansion of Social Security, free public higher education, debt cancellation for all medical and educational debts, prison labor could be abolished. Yeah, I think all of this is basically in my policies. Well, this part isn't. Taft-Hartley, I'm not sure what this is. Or the PRO Act, I don't know what these two are. Though my minimum wage is $33 an hour. Universal health care, shorter weekends, sick time, yeah. Everything but that beginning part is in my policies. The universal benefits would limit most predatory effects of U.S. capitalism. Such reforms have long since been achieved by other capitalist countries, but are out of reach for our corporate one-party system. For the rulers to call off the class war by eliminating poverty and economic anxiety is to risk losing control. That is the lesson they learned from the mid-20th century. Even if halfway reforms are passed, the problem, as the history of austerity shows, is that any reforms that leave the corporate empire intact will be open to powerful counterattack and cancellation. Since the ruling class refuses real reform, they put revolutionary change on the agenda. So yeah, and this is basically what I say in my my Cancer of Capitalism post, right? No matter what good things you pass that get passed, on the rare moment they do, they can always be undone because conservatives and neoliberals will always get in power because they have the money and the power. And they will always serve themselves while tearing down anything good that we have. It's not a matter of if it happens, it's a matter of when. Because capitalism is driven towards the concentration of wealth into smaller hands. Fewer and fewer people, and therefore they'll control the political process. True solutions must place people and planet first. How can we restore economic democracy without reverting to the twin environmental catastrophe of infinite economic growth and perpetual war? Industrial expansion and forever wars must come off the table if we want to avoid climate chaos and mass death. Yeah, that's what my policies talk about, right? Cut the military by 75%, shift that all to, for the most part, to environmental stuff and sustainable energy. In the end, expropriation and redistribution may be the only practical solution, since that would limit the need to produce new wealth. That means we must retake the 50 trillion stolen by the 1% and spread it around equally. Yes, expropriate the billionaires and convert the industries already deeply intertwined with the government into public assets. Agreed. Privatize Walmart, privatize Amazon, privatize Google, not privatize, sorry. Nationalize, actually we should globalize Google and Amazon, actually. Those should be globalized. Facebook should be globalized, but nationalize Walmart, nationalize energy, nationalize healthcare, education. Yes, definitely. When fossil fuels banking, the military industrial complex, big tech, and big pharma are converted into democratically controlled public entities, we will have true structural changes. When subsidies and political support, similar in scale to that now granted corporations, are directed to worker-owned enterprises, we would have workplace democracy as a structural feature. These deep changes are far beyond anything existing corporate order could envision or deliver. Yeah, and that's part of my policies too. This guy's got it right. So for me, these are the four deadly industries: fossil fuel industry, banking, military industrial complex, and pharmaceutical industry. I don't talk about big tech. It's just those four. Got that completely right. Yep. So in my policies, I have all businesses of a certain size should be, the default assumption should be that they are unionized. That should be the very least. Every business should be unionized, full stop. That's just kind of the minimum. But beyond that, they should be shifted to worker-owned or cooperatives. Yep, he's got it right. Big historic problems require big historic solutions. Call it economic and workplace democracy, call it socialism or revolution, call it love, or call it treason. I call it the only game in town is democracy. It's democracy or catastrophe. Yeah, she's right here. And I'll share my policies again if you want to take a look at how drastic my policies are. I talk about a lot of stuff. UBI is a part of mine. Housing is a human right, and so on and so forth. Oh, we got through that one. Okay. Where are we here? All right. Any questions or comments on that concept? Questions about policy? Yeah, so I have a minimum wage and I have a maximum wage. My minimum wage is $75,000 and the maximum wage is set at 9 times the minimum, which ends up being $675,000. So, and at the maximum wage, the tax rate is 100%. So that anything you make over that is taken by the government, full stop. So at that maximum wage, what you take home is effectively $250,000. Now, yes, we do have the concept that the rich people don't actually get income. They live off investments. So then we have to add in a wealth tax, which has a maximum marginal tax rate of 100%. Then you also have to put in wealth taxes and like stock transaction fees and stuff like that. So yeah, we have to get rid of all of that excess money and wealth that these people have, and then start siphoning it and putting it into healthcare and education and sustainable energy and mass transit and housing as a human right and all that sort of stuff. It's the only way. All right, 10 minutes left. Any questions? Comments or suggestions? I don't know if I want to start this one. This one's actually kind of long, but I could swear that we've read this before. Yeah, this one's super long. I'll go ahead and share this one. Give this one a read too. This one, I think, really talks about things kind of the way I talk about it. All right, no comments. This is from February of last year. I bet you we did read this. But we'll go through this again. This is from Yes, and it is, what does an ecological civilization look like? A society based on natural ecology might seem like a far-fetched, far-off utopia, yet communities everywhere are already creating it. Oh, it's a 13-minute read. Really? Okay, well, I guess we'll see. All right, as a new, saner administration sets up shop in Washington, D.C., there are plenty of policy initiatives this country desperately needs. Beyond a national plan for COVID-19 pandemic, progressives will strive to focus the administration's attention on challenges like fixing the broken healthcare system, grappling with systemic racial inequalities, and a just transition from fossil fuels to renewables. Oh, that's a bunch of fucking wishful thinking. These are critically important issues, but here's the rub. Even if the Democratic administration were resoundingly successful on all fronts, its initiatives would still be utterly insufficient to resolve the existential threat of climate breakdown and the devastation of our planet's life support systems. That's because the multiple problems confronting us right now are symptoms of an even more profound problem. The underlying structural the underlying structure of a global economic and political system that is driving civilization toward a precipice. True statement. Take a moment to peer beyond the day-to-day crisis, capturing our attention, and you quickly realize that the magnitude of the looming catastrophe makes our current political struggles, by comparison, look like arguing how to stack deck chairs on the Titanic. The climate emergency we're facing is far worse than most people realize. While it was clear an essential step for the United States to rejoin the 2015 Paris Agreement on climate change, the collective pledges on greenhouse gas emissions from that agreement are woefully insufficient. Yeah, in my climate policies, I talk about this, right? And even if you look at COP26, the Climate Paris Agreement it's a fucking waste of space. I mean, it's good to sign these sorts of things, but it doesn't fucking mean anything. It has no teeth. There's no enforcement. There's no way of penalizing anyone for violating it. It's just like, oh, maybe we should kind of do these things, you think, bruh? That's all it is. And COP26 is the same thing. If COP26 actually had, if these climate meets actually had teeth, the global north wouldn't be going. And that's, in my post on COP26, I talk about, let me pull that out. It's just, the global south goes to these begging for money and begging for support from the harms that the global north has inflicted on the climate, especially the United States as one of the largest polluter in all of fucking history. And we are, from looting the global south. Without the global north's help from the US and Europe, the global south doesn't have a chance of meeting anything. They would lead to dangerous temperature rise of more than 2 degrees Celsius this century, and many nations are failing to make even these targets. We are rapidly approaching, if we haven't already, past climate tipping points with reinforcing feedback loops that would lead to unrecognizable and terrifying world. Right, and as far as my understanding is, we are already there. We're already in the end of days. We are already, without the United States becoming the world leader in climate change, in the war on climate change, it's human extinction. From what we read, I think the last week or two, that we're looking at these horrors being with the next 100 to 200 years instead of the next 200 to 300 years, like I was saying. I was trying to be a little bit conservative there, but it's looking like these next 100 years is going to be pretty horrible. What's happening now across the world? Temperatures rising, the wet bulb temperatures, and fires everywhere, and droughts, and the crops dying and stuff like that. It's just going to get worse. It's going to go faster and faster until these next, before even I die, it's going to get horrible. Okay. Even if the climate crisis were somehow brought under control, our current growth-oriented economic juggernaut will bring us face to face with a slew of further existential threats in future decades. As long as government policies emphasize growth in gross domestic product and transnational corporations relentlessly pursue shareholder returns, we will continue accelerating toward global catastrophe. Right. In one of the articles we just read today, it was talking about this very thing. We need to shift towards degrowth instead of growth of the GDP. And my policies talk about this too, right? We need to shift. Our businesses are the only thing that they have to do is raise profit for their stockholders. That's the only thing. We need to change how our businesses are defined, how corporations and LLCs and stuff are defined, where the quality of life for their workers and people in their community and the quality of the environment come first. And then the tertiary thing to rate them for is profit. That would radically change everything. And then you implement economies for the common good, where you've got treating your people shitty and the environment shitty. Even though you're profitable, you're still going to be rated poorly. And then you start with making that if your company is rated poorly on human rights and climate and environment, then you don't get access to federal or city or state contracts. That would change things radically. Radically. But profit is the only thing that businesses care about by law. We're rapidly decimating the Earth's forests, animals, insects, fish, fresh water, even the topsoil we need to grow our crops. We've already transgressed 4 of the 9 planetary boundaries that define humanity's safe operating space, and yet global GDP is expected to triple by 2060 with potentially calamitous consequences. In 2017, more than 15,000 scientists from 184 countries issued an ominous warning to humanity that time is running out. Soon it will be too late, they wrote, to shift course away from our failing trajectory. We need to forge a new era for humanity, one that is defined at its deepest level by a transformation in the way we make sense of the world and a concomitant revolution in our values, goals, and collective behavior. In short, we need to change the basis of our global civilization. We must move from a civilization based on wealth accumulation to one that is life-affirming and ecological civilization. Exactly right. Exactly. And that's exactly what my policies are all about. And this cannot be done realistically under a monetary system. So again, as I brought up earlier, my 8 philosophical pillars for peace are the very core of that very thing. My 8 philosophical pillars: interdependence, humanity, natural world, sustainability, education, equity, justice and compassion, science and technology. Now, it's this top 3 here. It's interdependence. Interdependence is the most important part of my policies. It's the interdependence of humanity, not only with itself, but humanity with the natural world. And making sure that we have that balance is the most important part. And that's what my policies are all aimed at. And yeah, that can't be done under monetary systems because profit is all that matters. A life-affirming civilization. Without human disruption, ecosystems can thrive in rich abundance for millions of years, remaining resilient in the face of adversity. Clearly, there is much to learn from nature's wisdom about how to organize ourselves. Can we do it before it's too late? This is the fundamental idea underlying an ecological civilization, using nature's own design principles to reimagine the basis of our civilization, changing our civilization's operating system to one that naturally leads to life-affirming policies and practices rather than rampant extraction and devastation. That's good stuff. An ecological civilization is both a new and ancient idea. While the notion of structuring human society on an ecological basis might seem radical, indigenous peoples around the world have organized themselves from time immemorial on life-affirming principles. When Lakota communities on the land that is now the U.S. invoke Mitakuye Oyasin, we are all related, in ceremony, they are referring not just to themselves, but to all sentient beings. Buddhists, Taoists, and other philosophical and religious traditions have based much of their spiritual wisdom on the recognition of the deep interconnectedness of all things. And in modern times, a common thread linking progressive movements around the world is the commitment to a society that works for the flourishing of life rather than against it. Yeah, and in my policies, I say all is one. I didn't make that up. I spent some time trying to find something that worked, but I think it was, who says that? Krishnamurti? Krishnamurti. Where do I have here? All is one. Do I have it here? I don't. I don't put it here. But yeah, I got that all is one from Krishnamurti. 6 rules for human rejoining the natural world. Number 1, diversity. A system's health depends on differentiation and integration. When this principle of natural ecology is applied to human society, we see it as affirmation of different groups, self-defined by ethnicity, gender, and any other delineation, such as community self-determination, indigenous rights, restorative justice, social equity for LGBTQ communities, and like Chile's new constitution that they're working on, putting in a disability and neurodivergence or neurodiverse populations too. Deciphering nature's design principles. This is a secret formula hidden in there is a secret formula hidden deep in nature's intelligence, which catalyzed each of life's great evolutionary leaps over billions of years and forms the basis of all ecosystems. It's captured in the simple but profound concept of mutually beneficial symbiosis, a relationship between two parties to which each contributes something the other lacks and both gain as a result. With such symbiosis, there is no zero-sum game. The contributions of each party create a whole that is greater than the sum of its parts. Whenever you go for a walk in the woods, eat a meal, or take a dip in the ocean, you're experiencing the miracle of nature's symbiosis. Plants transform sunlight into chemical energy that provides food for other creatures, whose waste then fertilizes the soil the plants rely on. Underground fungal networks contribute essential chemicals to trees in return for nutrients they can't make for themselves. Pollinators fertilize plants, which produce fruit and seeds that nourish animals as they carry them to new locations. In your own gut, trillions of bacteria receive nutrition from the food you enjoy while reciprocating by producing enzymes you need for digestion. And they also, a lot of your vitamins and minerals come from your microbiome, because you can't make a lot of these vitamins and minerals yourself. You can't get them from the food. The bacteria in there processes the food and then puts those vitamins and minerals in, or at least the vitamins, into your body. In human society, symbiosis translates into foundational principles of fairness and justice, ensuring that the efforts and skills people contribute to society are rewarded equitably. In an ecological civilization, relationships between workers and employers, producers and consumers, humans and animals, would be based on each party gaining in value rather than one group exploiting the other. Because of symbiosis, ecosystems can sustain themselves almost indefinitely. Energy from the sun flows seamlessly to all the constituent parts. The waste of one organism becomes the sustenance of another. Nature produces a continuous flow where nothing is squandered. Likewise, an ecological civilization, in contrast to our current society, built on extracting resources and accumulating waste, would comprise a circular economy with efficient reuse of waste products embedded into processes from the outside. Exactly, and that's what my policies talk about: a regenerative, open source, circular economy. Now, I didn't come up with the circular economy thing myself. The regenerative and circular economy I got from donut economics. But yes, you need a circular economy. Anything that's ever created, all the waste from it should be recycled 100%. Exactly. Nature uses a fractal design with similar patterns repeating themselves at different scales. Fractals are everywhere in nature. You see them in the patterns of tree branches, coastlines, cloud formations, in the bronchial system of our lungs. Ecologies are themselves fractal, with the deep principles of self-organized behavior that perpetuate life, shared by microscopic cells, organisms, species, ecosystems, and the entire living Earth. This form of organization is known as a holarchy, where each element, from cells on up, is a coherent entity in its own right, while also an integral component of something larger. In a holarchy, the health of the system as a whole requires the flourishing of each system. Each living system is interdependent on the vitality of all other systems. So number 2, balance. Each part of the system is in a harmonious relationship with the entire system. When this principle of natural ecology is applied to human society, we see it as competition and cooperation and balance, and an equitable redistribution of wealth and power, such as a global wealth tax, multi-billionaires prescribed, abolish of offshore tax havens, legal support for co-ops and commons. Yeah, my policies have all this in there. Not just a global wealth tax, but a maximum wage on top of it. Yep, good for all this. Based on this crucial precept, an ecological civilization would be designed on the core principle of based on the core principle of fractal flourishing. The well-being of each person is fractally related to the health of the larger world. Okay. Individual health relies on societal health, which relies in turn on the health of the ecosystem in which it's embedded. Accordingly, from the ground up, it would foster individual dignity, providing the conditions for everyone to live in safety and self-determination, with universal access to adequate housing, competent healthcare, and quality education. Yep. In the fractal design of an ecosystem, health arises not through homogeneity, but through each organism contributing to the whole by fulfilling its own unique potential. Correspondingly, an ecological civilization would celebrate diversity, recognizing that its overall health depends on different groups, self-defined by ethnicity, gender, and any other delineation, developing their own unique gifts to their greatest extent possible. If in a natural ecology, the type of exponential growth that characterizes our global economy could only occur if other variables were out of balance and would inevitably lead to the catastrophic collapse of that population. The principle of balance would accordingly be crucial to an ecological civilization. Competition would be balanced by collaboration. Disparities in income and wealth would remain within much narrower bands, and would fairly reflect the contributions people make to society. So this is, in a sense, ableist. Like, people who can't really work, the old and the infirm or whatever. I mean, again, so this is the issue with to each according to their contribution. For me, in a resource-based economy, it should be to each according to what we can equitably provide. That's what it should be. And crucially, growth would become just one part of a natural life cycle, slowing down once it reaches its healthy limits, leading to a steady state, self-sustaining economy designed for well-being rather than consumption. Above all, an ecological civilization would be based on the all-encompassing symbiosis between human society and the natural world. Human activity would be organized not merely to avoid harm to the living, but to actively regenerate and sustain its health. An ecological civilization in practice. The overriding objective of an ecological civilization would be to create the conditions for all humans to flourish as a part of a thriving living earth. Currently, the success of political leaders is assessed largely by how much they increase their nation's GDP, gross domestic product, which merely measures the rate at which society transforms nature and human activities into the monetary economy, regardless of the ensuing quality of life. A life-affirming society would instead emphasize growth in well-being using measures like genuine progress indicator, which factors in qualitative components such as volunteer or household work, pollution, and crime. Yep. If you get into the economies for common good, they look at things like that. And much like I talk about, we need to value, quality of human lives and the quality of the environment first, and then economic comes third. For more than a century, most economic thinkers have recognized only two domains of economic activity: markets and government. The great political divide between capitalism and communism was structured accordingly. And even today, the debate continues along similar lines. An ecological civilization would incorporate government spending and markets, but as laid out by visionary economist Kate Raworth. Exactly. As I mentioned earlier, read her book, Donut Economics. It is awesome. It's required reading for my policies. Would add two critical realms to this framework: households and the commons. Yep. So number 3, fractal organization. The small reflects the large, and the health of the whole system requires the flourishing of each part. When this principle of natural ecology is applied to human society, we see it as individual dignity and self-determination, such as universal basic income, universal access to housing, healthcare, education, cities redesigned for walking and mass transportation, community interaction, education for life fulfillment, cosmopolitanism. Yes, I agree. All these are in my policies. 100%. 100%. In particular, the commons would become a crucial part of economic activity. Historically, the commons referred to shared land that peasants access to graze livestock or grow crops. But more broadly, the commons refer to any source of sustenance and well-being that has not yet been appropriated by the state or private ownership. The air, water, sunshine, as well as human creations like language, cultural traditions, and scientific knowledge. It is virtually ignored in most economic discussion because, like household work, it doesn't fit into the classic model of the economy. but the global commons belongs to all of us. And in ecological civilization, it would once again take its rightful place as a major provider of human welfare. Yep. The overwhelming proportion of wealth available to modern humans is the result of the cumulative ingenuity and industriousness of prior generations going back to the earliest times. However, as a consequence of centuries of genocide and slavery, systemic racism, extractive capitalism, and exploitation by the global north, that wealth is highly unevenly distributed. Once we realize the vast benefits of the commons bequeathed to us by our ancestors, along with the egregiously uneven wealth distribution, it transforms our conception of wealth and value. Contrary to the widespread view that an entrepreneur who becomes a billionaire deserves his wealth, the reality is that whatever value he created is a pittance compared to the immense bank of prior knowledge and social practices. The commonwealth that he took from. Exactly right. And the people who create things didn't create them by themselves. It's like Sagan said, we stand on the shoulders of giants. And as Jacques Fresco would talk about, right, what you've learned, Bezos creating his thing, he didn't create his education system to educate himself. He didn't create his own house, right, as a kid. He didn't create the roads. He didn't create, hundreds of thousands of years of history, of knowledge, up to the point where he was able to get a computer and do his thing, right? This is one of those things with the resource-based economy that, whatever you do and you're successful at, it wasn't just you. You benefited greatly from hundreds of thousands of years of human history and knowledge and technology and advancements. Conversely, it is the moral birthright of every human to share in the vast commonwealth bestowed on us. This could effectively be achieved through a program of unconditional monthly cash disbursements to every person on the planet, creating a foundation for dignity and security required for society's fractal flourishing. We'd also begin to address the moral imperative to remedy the extreme exploitation and injustices visited upon indigenous and black communities worldwide, historically and to this day. Yeah, and that's, again, UBI it's a transitional thing, and that's why it's part of my policies. But the ultimate goal here, the next step beyond this, my policies, is a resource-based economy. Because once you get to this point of enacting all this stuff, you realize that money is still standing in your way of making everything better, increasing the symbiosis, increasing the interdependence. Because eventually, with money, that's always going to lead to concentration of wealth into a much larger group, and then they're going to tear everything down for profit. Okay. Research has shown repeatedly that such programs, known as universal basic income, are remarkably effective at improving quality of life in communities around the world, in both the global north and south. Programs consistently report reduction in crime, child mortality, malnutrition, truancy, teenage pregnancy, and alcohol consumption, along with increases in health, gender equality, school performance, and even entrepreneurial activity. Yeah, almost every single place that's tried that, UBI plus UBI and the 4-day work week, it's only good things have ever come from doing it. And almost every country and business that has tried a 4-day work week has kept it. UBI would be one of those other things that it's just, if you want to solve most human problems, make sure no one's in poverty. And UBI is one of those tools to do that. Liberated by UBI from the daily necessity to sell their labor for survival, people reinvest their time into crucial sectors of the economy, in households and commons that naturally lead to life-affirming activity. Transnational corporations that currently dominate every aspect of global society would be fundamentally reorganized and made accountable to the communities they purportedly serve. Okay. Corporations above a certain size would only be permitted to operate within charters that require them to optimize social, environmental well-being, along with shareholder returns. Currently, these triple bottom line charters are voluntary, and very few large corporations adopt them. If, however, they were compulsory and strictly enforced by citizen panels comprising representatives of communities and ecosystems covered in the company's scope of operations, it would immediately transform the intrinsic character of corporations, causing them to work for the benefit of humanity and the living earth rather than for their demise. Exactly, and that's what I've been saying, right? Our businesses well, Congress needs to pass a law that says that increasing quality of life, increasing the environment, protecting it as the first things that businesses are responsible for. And the third thing, tertiary concern, is profit. And then they should be rated based off how well they do on those things. Exactly right. Exactly right. That would just radically change the way businesses would operate, because how they pay taxes and how they are taxed and stuff would change, because it'd be based off doing good for humanity in the natural world. 100%. In place of vast homogenized monocrops of industrial agriculture, food could be grown using principles of regenerative agriculture. Yep. Leading to greater crop biodiversity, improved water and carbon efficiency, and the elimination and virtual elimination of synthetic fertilizer. Manufacturing would be structured around circular material flows, and locally owned cooperatives would become the default organizational structure. Yep. Technological innovation would still be encouraged, but would be prized for its effectiveness in enhancing symbiosis between people and with living systems rather than minting billionaires. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. And as far as the other part of this, the agriculture aspect, yes, regenerative agriculture is going to be 100% of what needs to be done. Permaculture, regenerative agriculture. But especially with climate change coming, we need to be concentrating on vertical farms. Basically take, a 100-acre farm, take 10 acres of it, turn it into a vertical farm. Multi-story farm that produces, aeroponic, aquaponics, whatever, hydroponics. Make it multi-story, and you've got something that produces food year-round. You can get like 10 times the food. You get the same amount of food out of a tenth of the space and a tenth of the water, a tenth of the resources from a vertical farm than you can from the full farm. So you create that vertical farm on 10% of the land, and then you wild the rest of it. All right, number 4, life cycles. We're really going over today, but no one's home, so I'm just going to keep going. We'll finish this, and then we'll call it a day. Number 4, life cycles. Regenerative and sustainable flourishing into the long-term future. When this principle of natural ecology is applied to human society, we see it as economic growth halting once it reaches healthy limits, such as steady-state economies, a triple bottom line for corporations. Cities would redesign in ecological principles with community gardens on every available piece of land, essential services within 20-minute walk, and cars banned from city centers. The local community would be the basic building block of society, with face-to-face interaction regaining ascendance as a crucial part of human flourishing. Education would be re-envisioned, its goal transformed from preparing students for the corporate marketplace to cultivating in students the discernment and emotional maturity required to fulfill their life's purpose as valued members of society. Yeah, so a lot of this is in my policies. I don't necessarily talk about it quite this way, but yes, cities need to be designed from the ground up to be, they need to be larger, actually. We need to look at kind of our colleges, building up many, many stories, and they need to be much wider, so that you can basically have a single, building that is pretty much pretty much self-sustainable. Why are you not working? So that you got your vertical agriculture, creates its own energy, has education, healthcare, localized manufacturing, and everything all there localized for it, and so you don't have to import much. And then when you build up or you build down, so earth scraper or skyscrapers, much wider ones, then you take the surrounding land and just make sure it stays wild. Okay. Local community life would be enriched by the global reach of the internet. Online networks with scale, such as Facebook, would be turned over to the commons. Yep. So that rather than manipulating users to maximize advertising dollars, the internet could become a vehicle for humanity to develop planetary consciousness. Cosmopolitanism, an ancient Greek concept meaning being a citizen of the world, would be the defining characteristic of a global identity. It would celebrate diversity between cultures while recognizing the deep interdependence that binds all people into a single moral community with a shared destiny. Right, and that's what my policies talk about too. right? Because interdependence is the key part of that. The interdependence of humanity with itself, which is key to this. Governance would be transformed with local, regional, and global decisions made at levels where their effects are felt most, known as subsidiarity. While much decision-making would devolve to lower levels, a strong global governance would enforce rules on planet-wide challenges such as climate emergency and the sixth great extinction. A rights of nature declaration, that's part of my policies. There's one passed somewhere, and I have that in there too. That's very important. A rights of nature declaration recognizing the inalienable rights of ecosystems and natural entities to persist and thrive would put the natural world on the same legal standing as humanity, with personhood given to ecosystems and high-functioning mammals, and the crime of ecocide, the destruction of ecosystems, prosecuted by a court with global jurisdiction. Yeah, that's in my policies. Crimes against humanity and crimes against the natural world. That's exactly what we should be doing. And I say the fossil fuel industry people need to be brought up on charges against for crimes against humanity and crimes against the natural world. Yes, you're damn right, their asses should be put in jail, businesses taken, and all that sort of stuff. 100%. It's like this guy read my policies and just started writing stuff. Daring to make it possible. It doesn't take more than a glance at the headlines to realize how far we are from this vision of a society that fosters fractal flourishing. Yet just like the underground fungal network that nourishes trees in a forest, innumerable pioneering organizations around the world are already laying the groundwork for virtually all the components of a life-affirming civilization. In the United States, the visionary Climate Justice Alliance has laid out guidelines for a just transition from the extractive to regenerative economy that incorporates deep democracy with ecological and societal well-being. A network of more than 70 grassroots and frontline movements, the Alliance works collectively for a just transition towards food sovereignty, energy democracy, and ecological regeneration. Okay, I'm going to have to take a look at this. I'm pretty sure I've read this before. I'll put that one there before, and I'll put this in chat for you so you have it. Number 5, subsidiarity. Issues at the lowest levels affect health at the top. When this principle of natural ecology is applied to human society, we see it as grassroots self-autonomy and deep democracy, decision-making at the lowest level possible, horizontalism, cooperatives. In Bolivia and Ecuador, traditional ecological principles of buen vivir, good life, and sumac causa, good living, are written into the constitutions. While mechanisms for enforcement still need considerable strengthening, these principles establish a powerful alternative to extractive practices, offering a legal and ethical platform for legislation based on harmony, both with nature and between humans. In Europe, large-scale thriving cooperatives such as the Mondragon Cooperative in Spain demonstrate that it's possible for companies to prosper without utilizing a shareholder-based profit model. Yeah, so they're one of the largest cooperatives in the world, something like 19,000 employees or something like that, with roughly 100 businesses and 80,000 worker owners producing a wide range of industrial and consumer goods. Oh no, 80,000. Totally wrong. They have 80,000. Mondragon has 80,000 worker owners producing a wide range of industrial consumer goods. Mondragon proves that it is possible to succeed while maintaining a people-focused shared community of life affirming values. A new ecological worldview is spreading globally throughout cultural and religious institutions, establishing common ground with the heritage of traditional indigenous knowledge. The core principles of ecological civilization have already been laid out in the Earth Charter, an ethical framework launched in The Hague in 2000, endorsed by more than 50,000 organizations and individuals worldwide. In 2015, Pope Francis shook the Catholic establishment by issuing his encyclical Laudato Si, a masterpiece of ecological philosophy that demonstrates the deep interconnectedness of all life and calls for a rejection of the individualist neoliberal ethic. Oh, sounds like it's storming outside. Economists, scientists, and policymakers, recognizing the moral bankruptcy of the current economic model, are pooling resources to offer alternative frameworks. The Well-Being Economy Alliance is an international collaboration of changemakers working to transform our economic system to one that promotes human and ecological well-being. The Global Commons Alliance is similarly developing an international platform for regenerating the Earth's natural systems. Organizing such as the Next System Project and the Global Citizens Initiative are laying down parameters for the political, economic, and social organization of an ecological civilization. And the P2P Foundation, peer-to-peer foundation, is building a commons-based infrastructure for societal change. Around the world, an international movement of transition towns is transforming communities from the grassroots up by nurturing a caring culture, reimagining ways to meet local needs, and crowdsourcing solutions. Yeah, it is really storming here. The house shook a little bit. Yeah, they said 13 minutes. We're half an hour in. I don't know who the hell they think is reading this. Bunch of speed readers? Most importantly, a people's movement for life-affirming change is spreading globally, led by climate activists like Greta Thunberg, Vanessa Nakate, Maria Kopeni, Ziyi Bastida, Isra Hirsi, and others. Millions of school children worldwide are rousing their parents' generation from its slumber. A month after Extinction Rebellion demonstrators closed on central London in 2019, the UK Parliament announced a climate emergency, which has now been declared by nearly 2,000 local and national jurisdictions worldwide, not the United States, of course, representing more than 12% of the global population. Meanwhile, the Stop Ecocide campaign to establish ecocide as a crime punishable under international law is making important strides, getting serious consideration at the parliamentary level in France and Sweden, with a panel of experts convened to draft its definition. Yeah, we read something on this a while ago, I think last year. All right, 6. This is the last one. Woo! Symbiosis. Relationships that work for mutual benefit. When this principle of natural ecology is applied to human society, we see it as fairness and justice, regenerative economies, and circular energy flows, such as measuring well-being instead of GDP. Yep. Regenerative agriculture, permaculture principles, circular economies and manufacturing processes, rights of nature, and personhood for non-humans. Yep. When we consider the immensity of the transformation needed, the odds of achieving an ecological civilization might seem daunting, but it's far from impossible. As our current civilization begins to unravel on account of its internal failings, the strands that keep it tightly wound also get loosened. Every year that we head closer to catastrophe, as greater climate-related disasters rear up, as the outrages of racial and economic justice become even more egregious, and as life for most people become increasingly intolerable, the old narrative loses its hold on the collective consciousness. Waves of young people are looking for a new worldview, one that makes sense of the current unraveling, one that offers them a future they can believe in. It's a bold idea to transform the very basis of our civilization to one that's life-affirming, but when the alternative is unthinkable, a vision of a flourishing future shines a light of hope that can become a self-fulfilling reality. Dare to imagine it. Dare to make it possible by the actions you take, both individually and collectively, and it might just happen sooner than you expect. Okay, holy crap in a box. Yeah, 13 minutes, my ass. All right, so we are half an hour over. Any last minute questions or comments before we call this a day? Woo! Anything going once? Going twice. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for gifting me with your time. I really do appreciate it. Yeah, Good Bear, thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. You have a great weekend, and hope you get your work done. That was Insight Timer. Insight Timer, something like that. And I'll be here next week. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.
It's just me and you. Let's make up all the rules. Count to 10 and watch the stars turn blue. Watch the stars. We're all dreamers in our own way, trying to find